A powerful CEO stood in her wedding dress while her assistant whispered a devastating secret. But the real shock wasn't what he told her. It was what she already knew. When her fiancé arrived moments later, he had no idea he was walking straight into the trap she'd spent 6 weeks building. Before we begin, I want to invite you on this journey with me. Please stay until the end to see how this story unfolds. And don't forget to hit that like button and comment with the city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel across the world. The morning sun cast golden streaks across the polished marble floor of the Imperial Hotel's bridal suite. Adrienne Keller stood motionless before a floor-length mirror, her reflection shimmering in ivory silk that had cost more than most people earned in 6 months. At 34, she had built Keller Technologies from a startup in her garage into a company valued at $200 million. She had negotiated with venture capitalists, survived hostile takeover attempts, and rebuilt her brand 3 times after market crashes. But standing in this wedding dress, surrounded by white roses and champagne that would never be opened, she felt like she was preparing for the most dangerous negotiation of her life. Behind her, Daniel Hayes worked with steady hands to fasten the delicate pearl buttons that ran down the spine of the dress. His fingers trembled slightly, so slightly that most people wouldn't notice. But Adrienne noticed everything about Daniel. She had spent 5 years watching him move through her life like a shadow, anticipating her needs before she voiced them, solving problems before they became crises, and managing the chaos of her schedule with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. Daniel was 32, though the weight he carried made him seem older. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, his suit impeccably pressed, and his expression carefully neutral. He had mastered the art of being present without being noticed, essential without being acknowledged. It was what made him the perfect personal assistant. It was also what made him nearly invisible. "Almost done," Daniel said softly, his voice barely audible over the classical music playing from hidden speakers. Adrienne watched him in the mirror. His jaw was tight, and there was something in his eyes, something she had been seeing more frequently over the past few weeks. Worry, conflict, pain. She had known Daniel for exactly 5 years and 3 months. He had walked into her office on a Tuesday morning with a resume that listed previous positions at mid-level corporations, references that were professionally adequate, and a quiet desperation that he tried to hide behind polite confidence. He had been recently divorced, suddenly a single father to a 4-year-old daughter, and in desperate need of stable employment with flexible hours. Adrienne had hired him within 20 minutes. Over the years, Daniel had become indispensable. He managed her calendar, screened her calls, prepared her briefings, and somehow always knew whether she needed coffee or silence, space or solutions. He worked longer hours than anyone else on her staff, yet never missed his daughter's school events. He negotiated with vendors, liaised with board members, and handled crises with a calm competence that never wavered. He had also, somewhere along the way, become the person she trusted most in the world, which made what was about to happen even more complicated. Daniel finished the last button and stepped back. "There," he said. "You look beautiful." "Thank you." Adrienne turned slowly, the dress flowing around her like water. "Daniel, what time is it?" He glanced at his watch. 9:47. The ceremony starts at 11. "And Victor?" Daniel's expression flickered, just for a moment, but Adrienne caught it. "He texted 15 minutes ago. He said he's running late, but will be here soon." Adrienne nodded slowly. She walked to the window and looked out at the city below. From 23 floors up, Manhattan looked like a kingdom of glass and steel, beautiful and ruthless. She had conquered it through intelligence, determination, and an ability to see patterns that others missed. She saw patterns in people, too. "Daniel," she said quietly, "you've been distracted lately." Behind her, she heard him inhale sharply. "I apologize if my work hasn't been... Your work has been flawless, as always." She turned to face him. "But something's been bothering you. For about 3 weeks now, you've been staying late in the office, researching things that aren't on your task list. You've made calls to people I don't recognize, and twice I've found you looking at me with an expression I've never seen before." Daniel's face went pale. "Ms. Keller, It's Adrienne," she interrupted gently. "We've known each other for 5 years, Daniel. I think we're past formalities, especially on my wedding day." He swallowed hard. For several long seconds, he said nothing. The silence stretched between them like a bridge neither wanted to cross. Then Daniel spoke, and his voice was rough with emotion. "Your fiancé isn't coming." The words landed in the elegant room like stones dropped into still water. Adrienne didn't move. She didn't gasp or cry or demand explanations. She simply stood there, watching Daniel with eyes that seemed to see straight through him. "Tell me," she said. Daniel closed his eyes briefly, as if gathering strength. When he opened them again, they were filled with a mixture of anguish and determination. "3 weeks ago, you asked me to coordinate with Victor's assistant about the honeymoon arrangements," he began. "There was some confusion about passport documentation, so I offered to help resolve it. While doing that, I noticed inconsistencies in the information Victor had provided. Small things, a middle name spelled differently on one document, a previous address that didn't match his official records." Adrienne's expression remained perfectly calm. "Go on." "At first I thought it was just bureaucratic errors, but something felt wrong, so I looked deeper." Daniel's hands clenched at his sides. "I contacted a friend who works in public records. She helped me access marriage certificates filed in New York over the past decade. And Victor Lang was married 8 years ago to a woman named Rebecca Morrison. According to official records, that marriage was never dissolved." The words hung in the air between them. Adrienne walked slowly to the small sitting area and lowered herself onto a velvet sofa. She looked ethereal in the wedding dress, like a ghost haunting her own ceremony. "He's still married," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." Daniel's voice cracked slightly. "I found Rebecca 3 days ago. She's living in Connecticut. She told me Victor disappeared 4 years ago, claiming he needed to find himself. She never filed for divorce because she kept hoping he'd come back. She didn't know he had created an entirely new life in Manhattan." "Did she know about me?" "No. When I told her Victor was planning to marry you, she was devastated." Daniel moved closer but stopped himself from reaching out to her. "Adrienne, I'm so sorry. I should have told you immediately when I first suspected something, but I needed to be certain. And then once I was certain, I struggled with how to tell you. You seemed so happy planning this wedding. Every time I tried to speak up, I convinced myself it wasn't my place, that maybe there was an explanation, that I was wrong. But you weren't wrong." "No." Daniel's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "I wasn't wrong." Adrienne sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap. The morning light illuminated her face, revealing an expression that was impossible to read. Then she asked the question that changed everything. "Did you wait to tell me because you wanted to protect me from being hurt too early? Or because you didn't want me to marry him at all?" Daniel froze. The question cut through all his careful justifications and exposed the truth he had been hiding even from himself. He struggled to find words that wouldn't betray too much. "I wanted to protect you. That's not what I asked." Her eyes met his, and in that moment, all the professional distance they had carefully maintained for 5 years evaporated. Daniel saw himself reflected in her gaze, not as an assistant or employee, but as a man who had been in love with his boss for longer than he wanted to admit. "Both," he finally said, his voice raw. "It was both. I didn't want you to be hurt, but I also—" He stopped, unable to continue. Adrienne rose gracefully from the sofa and walked toward him. The dress whispered against the floor. "You also didn't want me to marry him," she finished for him. Daniel nodded, unable to speak. Why? The question was simple, but the answer was impossibly complex. Daniel thought about all the moments he had swallowed his feelings, watching Adrienne laugh at Victor's jokes, seeing her try on engagement rings, listening to her excitedly plan a future with a man who didn't deserve her. He thought about the nights he went home to his daughter and wondered what his life might have been if circumstances had been different, if he had been brave enough to see himself as something more than just an assistant. "Because he doesn't see you," Daniel said quietly. "Not really. He sees the CEO, the wealth, the status, but he doesn't see the woman who works until 3 a.m., because she feels responsible for every employee who depends on her company. He doesn't see how you always remember the names of the cleaning staff and ask about their families. He doesn't see how you cry when you watch sad movies, even though you pretend you don't. He doesn't know that you're afraid of thunderstorms, or that you donate anonymously to a dozen charities, or that you keep a photo of your late father in your desk drawer and talk to it when you're making difficult decisions. Adrian's eyes glistened, but no tears fell. Victor doesn't know any of that, Daniel continued, because he's never bothered to look beyond the surface. And you deserve someone who sees all of you, not just the parts that benefit them. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The air between them felt charged with everything that had never been said in 5 years of careful professionalism. Then Adrian smiled, a small, strange smile that Daniel couldn't interpret. "Daniel," she said softly, "I need to tell you something." "What?" "I discovered Victor was still married 6 weeks ago." Daniel stared at her, certain he had misheard. "What?" "6 weeks ago, I hired my own investigator." Adrian's voice was steady, controlled. "I had suspicions about Victor's past. Small inconsistencies, like you mentioned. I'm very good at seeing patterns, and something about his story never quite aligned, so I did what I always do when facing uncertainty. I gathered data." "You knew?" Daniel's mind reeled. "You knew for 6 weeks?" "Yes." "Then why—" He gestured helplessly at the wedding dress, the flowers, the venue downstairs where 200 guests were gathering. "Why go through with all of this, but—" Adrienne walked back to the window. When she spoke again, her voice carried the cold calculation of a CEO who had built an empire through strategic thinking. "Because I needed to understand the full scope of Victor's deception. When I discovered he was still married, I knew that was likely just the beginning. Men who lie about something that significant rarely stop there, so I kept planning the wedding while my investigator kept digging." She turned to face Daniel, and now her expression was sharp as glass. "Over the past 6 weeks, we've uncovered a systematic fraud scheme. Victor has been using our relationship to gain access to my business contacts. He's been positioning himself for a post-wedding scenario where he would have legal claim to portions of my assets. He's also been running a side operation, using my name and reputation to secure investments in fake ventures. We've identified at least 12 victims who've collectively lost over $3 million. Daniel felt like the floor had disappeared beneath him. "My God!" "The wedding was never going to happen," Adrienne continued. "I've been coordinating with law enforcement for the past 3 weeks. Every detail of this ceremony has been carefully planned, but not for the reason everyone thinks. Today, Victor Lang is going to arrive at this hotel expecting to marry a wealthy, naive woman he's successfully deceived. Instead, he's going to walk into the most comprehensive fraud case the district attorney has built in 5 years. She paused, letting the information settle. "The only variable I couldn't control was you." Thus, Daniel's throat went dry. "Me?" "Yes." Adrienne moved closer to him. "I noticed when you started researching Victor. I saw you making those phone calls, staying late, looking troubled. I knew you were uncovering the truth, and I watched you struggle with what to do about it. For weeks, I waited to see if you would tell me." "Why?" "Because I needed to know." "Know what?" Adrienne's voice softened. "I needed to know if you would choose truth over comfort. If you would risk your job, your security, everything you've built to protect me. I needed to know if you saw me as your employer or as—" She trailed off. "As what?" Daniel whispered. Before Adrienne could answer, a sharp knock sounded at the door. "Miss Keller," a woman's voice called from the hallway. "Mr. Lang has arrived. He's asking to see you before the ceremony." Daniel and Adrienne locked eyes. In that moment, everything they had been to each other, employer and assistant, friend and confidant, two people divided by professional boundaries and unspoken feelings, crystallized into something new. "Are you ready?" Adrienne asked. Daniel understood she wasn't asking about the confrontation with Victor. She was asking something much bigger. "Yes," he said. Adrienne walked to the door and opened it. Her head of security, Marcus Chen, stood in the hallway with a subtle earpiece and the alert posture of someone expecting trouble. "Send him in," Adrienne said. "And Marcus, make sure Detective Morrison and her team are in position." Marcus nodded and spoke quietly into his microphone. Moments later, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Victor Lang appeared in the doorway. He was 42, handsome in the way that men with money and personal trainers often are. His tuxedo was custom-tailored, his smile confident, and his eyes bright with what looked like genuine affection. He carried a small velvet box in one hand. "Adrienne," he said warmly, You look absolutely stunning. He moved to embrace her, but Adrienne stepped back smoothly. Victor, you're late. I know, darling, and I'm sorry. He glanced at Daniel with mild irritation, as if noticing an unwanted piece of furniture. Daniel, could you give us a moment? I'd like to speak with my bride privately. Daniel looked at Adrienne. She gave him an almost imperceptible nod. Of course, Daniel said, but instead of leaving, he moved to stand beside the window, making it clear he wasn't going far. Victor's jaw tightened slightly, but he maintained his smile. Adrienne, I wanted to give you this before the ceremony. He opened the velvet box, revealing a diamond bracelet that sparkled in the morning light. It was my grandmother's. I wanted you to wear something from my family. Your family, Adrienne repeated slowly. She made no move to take the bracelet. Yes. Victor moved closer. Adrienne, is something wrong? You seem distant. Do I? Talk to me. He reached for her hand, but again she withdrew. His smile faltered. What's going on? Adrienne walked to the small desk where her wedding planner had left various documents. She picked up a manila folder and turned to face Victor. I have some questions about your family, she said calmly, starting with your wife. The change in Victor was instantaneous. His smile vanished. His eyes went cold and calculating. What are you talking about? Rebecca Morrison. You married her 8 years ago in Albany. The marriage was never dissolved. Victor's face flushed red. That's absurd. Rebecca and I divorced years ago. Then you'll have no trouble producing the divorce decree. I don't carry legal documents around with me, Adrienne. This is ridiculous. He turned his anger toward Daniel. Is this your doing? Have you been filling her head with lies? Daniel remained silent, but his presence seemed to anchor Adrienne. Daniel didn't lie to me, Adrienne said. He told me the truth, something you've never done. Victor's composure was cracking. You don't understand. Rebecca and I have been separated for years. The marriage was over in every way that matters. I just never got around to filing the paperwork. You never got around to it, Adrienne repeated, in 8 years. It wasn't a priority, but marrying me was. Victor took a deep breath, clearly trying to regain control. When he spoke again, his voice was softer, more persuasive. Adrienne, I love you. Yes, I made a mistake by not being completely transparent about my past. But that doesn't change what we have together. We can fix this. I'll file for divorce from Rebecca immediately. We'll postpone the wedding for a few months until everything is finalized, but please don't throw away what we have over a technicality. A technicality? Adrienne's voice was ice. Is that what you call bigamy? Adrienne, and what about the investors? Victor went very still. What investors? Adrienne opened the manila folder and pulled out several documents. The investors who gave you money for your revolutionary blockchain startup. The ones you promised returns of 300% within 2 years. The ones who trusted you because you were dating me and they assumed I had vetted your business. She held up the papers one by one. Martin Chen. Investment, $200,000. Sandra Williams. Investment, $400,000. Robert Harrison. Investment, $350,000. She looked up at Victor. Shall I continue? I have 12 names in total. Victor's face had gone pale. Those were legitimate investments in a real company. Really? Then where is the company registered? Where are the business filings? Where is the actual product? It's in development. It doesn't exist. Adrienne's voice cut through his excuses like a blade. There is no company. There is no blockchain technology. There was only you using my name and reputation to steal millions of dollars from people who trusted you. Victor's mask finally shattered. The charming facade disappeared, replaced by something ugly and desperate. You can't prove any of that, he snarled. Actually, I can. Adrienne nodded toward the door. It opened and 2 people entered. The first was a woman in her mid-30s wearing a detective's badge. The second was a tall man in a dark suit carrying a briefcase. Victor Lang, the detective said. I'm Detective Morrison with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. This is Assistant District Attorney James Chen. We have some questions about your business dealings. Victor's eyes darted between them, then to the door, calculating escape routes. Don't, Marcus Chen said from the hallway. 2 uniformed officers appeared behind him. Victor looked at Adrienne with pure hatred. You bitch, No, Adrian said calmly. I'm the woman who was smart enough to see through you. Detective Morrison stepped forward. Mr. Lang, you have the right to remain silent. As the detective read Victor his rights, Daniel watched Adrian's face. She showed no emotion, no satisfaction, no relief, no vindication. She simply stood there in her wedding dress, looking like a queen who had just sentenced a traitor. Victor was handcuffed and led toward the door, but before leaving he turned back to Adrienne one last time. You think you're so smart, he spat. You think you've won, but you're going to end up alone in that big empty house with nothing but your money and your pride. Because no one will ever love you, Adrienne. You're too cold, too calculating, too... That's enough, Daniel said sharply, stepping forward for the first time. Victor laughed bitterly. And you think you're the hero here? The loyal assistant who saves his boss? She's using you just like she uses everyone. You're nothing but another employee to her. Remove him, Detective Morrison ordered. The officers escorted Victor out, his protests fading down the hallway. When the door closed, silence filled the suite. Adrienne stood motionless in the center of the room. The wedding dress that had seemed so beautiful minutes ago now looked like a costume for a play that had ended. Ms. Keller, Detective Morrison said gently, we'll need a formal statement from you at some point, but it doesn't have to be today. I'm sorry your wedding day ended like this. Thank you, Detective, Adrienne said. I'll have my lawyer coordinate with your office. The detective and ADA gathered their materials and left, followed by Marcus and the security team. The door closed again. And then there were two. Adrienne walked slowly to the mirror and looked at her reflection. 6 weeks, she said quietly. 6 weeks of pretending to be excited about flowers and seating charts and wedding cake tastings. 6 weeks of smiling when Victor touched me, of acting like I believed his lies, of playing the role of the naive woman in love. She reached up and began unfastening the pearl buttons on her dress. Let me help, Daniel said. No. Adrienne's voice was firm, but not unkind. I need to do this myself. Daniel watched as she struggled with the buttons she couldn't reach. After a moment, she laughed, a short, sharp sound that held no humor. I can run a $200 million company, she said, but I can't get out of my own wedding dress. Adrienne, he was right, Victor, about me being cold and calculating. She finally gave up on the buttons and turned to face Daniel. That's who I've had to be. Women in my position don't get second chances. One mistake, one moment of weakness, and everything I've built could collapse. So I learned to see every interaction as a transaction, every relationship as a strategy. I learned to trust data instead of instincts, patterns instead of people. That's not all you are, Daniel said. Isn't it? Adrienne's eyes glistened. I knew Victor was a fraud for 6 weeks, and I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends, not my family. I let them all continue planning for a wedding that was never going to happen because I needed to build an airtight case. I used their genuine happiness to maintain the illusion. What does that make me? It makes you strong. Or heartless. No. Daniel moved closer. It makes you someone who understands that sometimes you have to endure pain to prevent greater harm. Victor wasn't just going to hurt you, Adrienne. He had already hurt 12 other people, and he would have hurt more. You stopped him. That's not heartless. That's courage. Adrienne looked at him with an expression he had never seen before, vulnerable, uncertain, almost afraid. Why did you really wait to tell me? She asked. The truth, Daniel. Not the professional answer, the real answer. Daniel knew this was the moment. Everything they had been dancing around for 5 years had led here, to this impossible conversation in a bridal suite where a wedding would never take place. Because I was afraid, he admitted. Afraid that if I told you about Victor, you would ask me why I had been investigating him so thoroughly. And then I would have to admit that I wasn't doing it just as your assistant. I was doing it because the thought of you marrying him made me feel like I was losing something I never had in the first place. And what was that? Hope. The word came out as barely a whisper. Hope that someday, somehow, you might see me as more than just the person who manages your schedule. Adrienne stepped closer. They were inches apart now, close enough that Daniel could see the fine details of her face. The small scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood fall, the flecks of amber in her hazel eyes, the way her breathing had quickened. "Daniel," she said softly, "why do you think I asked you to help me with this dress this morning?" I... I don't know." "Yes, you do." Daniel's mind raced back through the morning. Adrienne had 3 bridesmaids, a professional stylist, and a wedding planner all available to help her dress. She could have chosen any of them. Instead, she had sent everyone away and asked for Daniel. "You wanted to see if I would tell you," he said slowly. "You wanted to know if I would choose protecting you over protecting myself." "Yes, but there was more to it than that." Adrienne reached up and gently touched his face. "I wanted to see if you would finally see yourself the way I see you." "How do you see me?" "As the man who has been standing beside me for 5 years. The man who knows that I hate small talk at networking events, so he creates elaborate excuses to extract me. The man who remembers that I'm allergic to lilies and makes sure they're never in my office. The man who told his daughter stories about a superhero businesswoman because he wanted her to believe women could do anything." Daniel's breath caught. "You knew about that?" "I know everything about you, Daniel. I know you drive a 12-year-old sedan that you keep meticulously maintained. I know you've been taking online business courses for the past 2 years because you want to create a better life for your daughter. I know you send half your paycheck to your ex-wife to help with expenses you're not legally required to cover because you believe it's the right thing to do. I know you volunteer at a literacy program every Saturday morning and tell me you're running errands." "How, Because I pay attention to you the same way you pay attention to me," Adrienne said. "Because somewhere over the past 5 years, you stopped being just my assistant and became the person I trusted with everything that matters. And when I discovered Victor was a fraud, the first thing I thought wasn't about the legal complications or the embarrassment or the money. It was about you." "Me?" "I thought, I need to tell Daniel. Not my lawyer, not my family, not my friends. You. Because you're the person I turn to when everything falls apart." Daniel felt like the world had tilted on its axis. "Adrienne, Don't," she interrupted. "Don't say you're just my assistant. Don't minimize what you are to me. Not now." They stood facing each other in the bridal suite, surrounded by the trappings of a wedding that had never been real, finally honest about feelings they had hidden for years. "What happens now?" Daniel asked. Adrienne smiled, a real smile this time, warm and genuine. "Now you help me out of this dress. Then we go downstairs and tell 200 confused guests that the wedding is canceled. Then we deal with the lawyers and the press and all the practical nightmares that are about to unfold. And after that, Adrienne paused, considering. After that, we figure out what we are to each other when we're not hiding behind professional boundaries." She turned her back to him, presenting the row of pearl buttons. "Help me," she asked. Daniel's hands were steadier this time as he unfastened the delicate closures. As each button came undone, it felt like they were also unfastening the careful distance they had maintained for so long. "Daniel," Adrienne said as he worked, "Victor was wrong about something." "What?" "He said no one would ever love me because I'm too cold, too calculating, but that's not true, is it?" Daniel finished the last button and let his hands rest gently on her shoulders. "No," he said. "It's not true." Adrienne turned to face him, holding the dress against her chest. "How do you know?" "Because," Daniel said, finally allowing himself to say the words he had kept locked inside for years, "someone already does." The confession hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning and possibility. Before Adrienne could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and sighed. "It's my head of PR. The guests are starting to ask questions." "We should go," Daniel said. "Yes." But neither of them moved. Finally, Adrienne reached out and took Daniel's hand. "Walk with me?" she asked. "Not 3 steps behind. Beside me." Daniel laced his fingers through hers. "Always." As they left the bridal suite together, the morning sun streamed through the tall windows, illuminating a path forward neither of them had expected, but both of them had secretly hoped for. The wedding was over, but something new was just beginning. The elevator descended in silence. Adrienne had changed into a simple charcoal dress she kept in her office for emergencies, though Daniel suspected she had never imagined an emergency quite like this. Her hand remained in his, their fingers intertwined in a way that felt both natural and revolutionary. "Are you nervous?" Daniel asked as the floor numbers counted down. "Terrified," Adrienne admitted. I've faced hostile board meetings, survived market crashes, and rebuilt my company from near bankruptcy. But walking into a ballroom full of people expecting a wedding and telling them it's not happening, that actually scares me. You don't have to do this alone. She squeezed his hand. I know. The elevator chimed as it reached the lobby level. When the doors opened, they were immediately met by Catherine Mills, Adrienne's head of public relations. Catherine was 52, brilliant, and currently looked like she was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Adrienne, thank heavens, Catherine said, her voice tight with stress. The guests are getting restless. Your mother has called me 4 times in the last 10 minutes. The caterers are asking about timing for the reception, and someone from the Manhattan Chronicle just showed up asking for a statement about police activity in the building. The press is already here? Adrienne asked. They monitor police scanners. When they heard units dispatched to the Imperial Hotel on what was supposed to be your wedding day, they put 2 and 2 together. Catherine's eyes darted to Daniel's hand holding Adrienne's, but she was too professional to comment. What do you want me to tell them? The truth, Adrienne said. Prepare a statement. My fiancé has been arrested on fraud charges. The wedding is canceled. I appreciate everyone's understanding during this difficult time. Catherine pulled out her tablet and began typing rapidly. And the guests? I'll speak to them myself. Adrienne, are you sure that's wise? We could simply announce the cancellation and... These people came here because they care about me, Adrienne interrupted. Or at least they think they do. They deserve to hear the truth directly. Catherine nodded reluctantly. I'll inform the hotel staff and coordinate with security. The ballroom is ready whenever you are. As Catherine hurried away, Daniel felt Adrienne's grip tighten on his hand. Still terrified? He asked quietly. More than before. Then let's go be terrified together. They walked through the hotel's opulent lobby toward the grand ballroom. Daniel could see guests milling about in the hallway, dressed in formal attire, checking their watches and murmuring to each other. As Adrienne approached, conversation stopped. Heads turned, the air filled with questions no one quite dared to ask. Adrienne's mother, Patricia Keller, appeared from the crowd. She was 68, elegant in a pale blue dress, and her face was etched with concern. Adrienne, darling, what's going on? Patricia asked. People are saying the police were here. Is Victor all right? Mom, can we talk inside? Patricia's eyes moved to Daniel, taking in their joined hands with visible confusion. Daniel, what are you doing here? He's with me, Adrienne said simply. Before Patricia could press further, Marcus Chen appeared at Adrienne's elbow. Ms. Keller, the ballroom is secured. Whenever you're ready. Adrienne nodded. She looked at Daniel one more time, drawing strength from his presence, then released his hand and walked toward the ballroom entrance. Daniel started to follow, but Patricia caught his arm. What happened? She asked urgently. And why are you holding my daughter's hand? Mrs. Keller, Adrienne will explain everything, but you should know that she's incredibly brave, and she's about to do something very difficult. Patricia studied his face for a long moment. You care about her. It wasn't a question, but Daniel answered anyway. Yes, I do. How long? Too long to count. Patricia's expression softened slightly. Then stay close to her. Something tells me she's going to need you. Inside the ballroom, 200 guests had gathered in expectation of a wedding ceremony. The space was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, white orchids, silk drapery, and rows of chairs facing an altar decorated with roses. A string quartet sat ready with their instruments. Everything was perfect, except for the one thing that mattered most. There would be no wedding. Adrienne walked to the front of the room, her footsteps echoing on the polished floor. Conversations died as people noticed her. The dress was wrong. Everyone could see that. This wasn't bridal attire. This was something else entirely. Daniel positioned himself near the side entrance where he could see Adrienne clearly. Marcus and 2 other security personnel stood at strategic points around the room. Adrienne stood before the altar and took a breath. Thank you all for coming today, she began. Her voice carried across the silent ballroom. I know you're here expecting to witness a wedding. I'm sorry to tell you that won't be happening. A ripple of shock moved through the crowd. Someone gasped. Patricia gripped the back of a chair. This morning, my fiancé, Victor Lang, was arrested on multiple counts of fraud, Adrienne continued. Over the past several weeks, I've been working with law enforcement to build a case against him. Victor was using our relationship to gain access to my business network and steal money from investors who trusted him because of his association with me. The murmurs grew louder. Daniel saw various reactions: shock, confusion, anger, and in some faces, something that looked uncomfortably like satisfaction. I discovered Victor's criminal activities 6 weeks ago, Adrienne said. I made the choice to continue planning this wedding while gathering evidence. I understand that decision may seem strange or calculated to some of you, but I want you to understand why I did it. She paused, looking out at the faces before her. Victor Lang defrauded at least 12 people that we know of. He stole over $3 million, and he was planning to use our marriage to expand his schemes and hurt even more people. If I had simply confronted him and called off the wedding when I first discovered the truth, he would have disappeared, changed his identity again, and continued victimizing others. By maintaining the illusion that everything was normal, we were able to gather the evidence needed to ensure he faces real consequences. Patricia had tears streaming down her face. Other guests looked devastated, particularly those who had invested in Victor's fake companies. Martin Chen, the man who had lost $200,000, stood up from his seat. Adrienne, I invested in Victor's blockchain company because he was marrying you. I trusted him because of you. I know, Mr. Chen, and I'm deeply sorry. The district attorney's office is working to recover as much of the stolen money as possible. My legal team will also be reaching out to all of Victor's victims to discuss restitution. But the money's gone, Martin said bitterly. My retirement savings, my daughter's college fund, it's all gone because I trusted you. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Adrienne didn't flinch. You're right to be angry. Victor used my reputation as a weapon, and I didn't protect you from that. I can't give you back the time or the security you've lost. All I can offer is my commitment to making this as right as possible and ensuring Victor pays for what he's done. She looked directly at Martin as she spoke, and Daniel saw something shift in the older man's expression. The anger didn't disappear, but it softened slightly in the face of Adrienne's unflinching honesty. Another guest stood, a woman in her 30s whom Daniel didn't recognize. How did you not know? She asked. You're supposed to be brilliant. How did Victor fool you? He didn't fool me for long, Adrienne said. But he fooled me initially because I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that someone could see past my money and my company and want me for who I am. That desire made me vulnerable. It made me ignore small warning signs that I would have caught immediately in a business context. The admission surprised Daniel. Adrienne rarely acknowledged vulnerability, especially in public. I think that's what Victor counted on, Adrienne continued, not just with me, but with all of you. He understood that people want to believe in things that seem too good to be true: revolutionary investments, perfect love stories, easy answers to complicated problems. He weaponized hope. Patricia wiped her eyes and stood. Sweetheart, you don't have to explain yourself to these people. Yes, I do, Mom. They came here in good faith. They deserve the truth. An older gentleman in the back row raised his hand slightly. Daniel recognized him as Richard Sterling, a venture capitalist who had helped fund Keller Technologies in its early days. Adrienne, Richard said, his voice gentle, what do you need from us? The question seemed to surprise her. I'm sorry? You've just had your wedding day destroyed. You've been conducting a criminal investigation while pretending to plan a life with someone who was lying to you. You've had to be strong and strategic when most people would have fallen apart. So I'm asking, what do you need from us right now? Adrienne's composure cracked slightly. For just a moment, Daniel saw the exhaustion and pain she had been hiding beneath her calm exterior. I need you to understand that I'm human, she said quietly. I built my company through careful planning and strategic thinking. I've spent 15 years making the right decisions, seeing patterns before others do, and maintaining control. But in my personal life, I made a terrible mistake. I chose the wrong person, and I'm sorry that mistake hurt so many of you. She straightened her shoulders, gathering herself. The hotel has arranged for a meal to be served since the caterers were already prepared. You're welcome to stay, or you can leave. Either way, thank you for coming. Thank you for caring enough to be here. Adrienne stepped away from the altar. The ballroom remained silent for several seconds, and then Richard Sterling began to clap. Slowly, hesitantly, others joined. It wasn't the enthusiastic applause of a celebration, it was something more complex. Acknowledgement, respect, empathy. Patricia rushed forward and embraced her daughter. Daniel watched as Adrienne finally let herself lean into her mother's arms, her shoulders shaking with silent tears. The guests began to disperse, some heading toward the reception area where food would be served, others leaving quietly. Daniel noticed that several people approached Adrienne with words of support, while others avoided eye contact entirely. Marcus appeared at Daniel's side. The press is gathering outside. Catherine is handling them, but they're going to want to talk to Ms. Keller eventually. Not today, Daniel said firmly. Agreed. Marcus paused. You know the staff is going to talk, right? About you and Ms. Keller holding hands. About you being up in that bridal suite with her. I know. Is there something I should be aware of from a security perspective? Daniel looked at Marcus. They had worked together for 5 years, coordinating Adrienne's protection and schedule. Marcus was more than just security. He was someone Daniel trusted. That's complicated, Daniel admitted. Most important things are. Marcus glanced toward where Adrienne stood with her mother. Just so you know, the team likes you. If things are changing between you and Ms. Keller, you'll have support. Thanks, Marcus. The security chief nodded and moved away to continue monitoring the room. Daniel waited as Adrienne spoke with various guests. He watched her shift seamlessly between versions of herself, comforting her mother, professional and apologetic with the investors, warm with old family friends. It was a masterclass in emotional regulation, and Daniel knew it was exhausting her. After nearly an hour, Patricia finally pulled Adrienne aside. You need to rest, sweetheart. Let me take you home. I can't leave yet. There are still people I need to talk to, and Catherine needs me to review the press statement and… Adrienne, Patricia's voice was firm, you've been strong enough for one day. Let someone else handle the rest. Mom, I'm fine. No, you're not, and that's okay. Daniel saw Adrienne's resistance crumbling. She was running on fumes, held together by sheer willpower and professional habit. I'll take her home, Daniel said, stepping forward. Patricia turned to look at him. I'm her mother. I should… With respect, Mrs. Keller, Adrienne needs someone who understands what she's been dealing with for the past 6 weeks. Someone who knows the full story. Patricia studied Daniel for a long moment. You were involved in the investigation? Yes. Did you know this whole time that the wedding wasn't going to happen? No. I discovered Victor was a fraud 3 weeks ago. I didn't know Adrienne had already been investigating him until this morning. Patricia's expression was unreadable. Finally, she said, Take care of my daughter, Daniel. I will. Patricia kissed Adrienne's forehead and whispered something Daniel couldn't hear. Then she gathered her coat and left, leaving Daniel and Adrienne standing together in the slowly emptying ballroom. I should go talk to the caterers about the food arrangements, Adrienne said, but she didn't move. The hotel staff can handle that. And I need to review Catherine's press statement. Catherine has been handling media crises for 20 years. She doesn't need you to review basic messaging. Daniel, Adrienne, stop. She looked at him, and for the first time since they'd left the bridal suite, her careful mask slipped completely. She looked lost. I don't know what to do now, she admitted. I've spent 6 weeks planning for this moment. Everything was mapped out. The confrontation, the arrest, the cancellation announcement. I knew exactly what would happen and when. But now it's over, and I don't have a plan for what comes next. Daniel took her hand. Then let's start with something simple. Let's get you out of here. Where would we go? Anywhere that isn't here. Adrienne looked around the ballroom at the wedding decorations that mocked the ceremony that never happened. Okay, she whispered. They left through a service entrance that Marcus had secured, avoiding the press that had gathered at the main doors. Daniel's 12-year-old sedan was parked in the hotel's underground garage, looking distinctly out of place among the luxury vehicles. Adrienne smiled slightly when she saw it. I don't think I've ever been in your car. It's not exactly what you're used to. That's okay. I think I need something different from what I'm used to. They drove through Manhattan in mid-afternoon traffic. Neither of them spoke at first. Daniel headed north without a specific destination, just putting distance between them and the Imperial Hotel. Finally, Adrienne broke the silence. Where are we going? I don't know yet. Where do you want to go? Somewhere quiet. Somewhere I don't have to be CEO Adrienne Keller. Daniel thought for a moment, then made a decision. He turned east toward the FDR Drive. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a small park along the East River. It was a neighborhood green space, nothing spectacular, just a few benches overlooking the water and a playground where children chased each other in the autumn afternoon. This is where I bring my daughter on Saturdays, Daniel said as they walked toward a bench. After her soccer practice. We get ice cream from that truck over there and watch the boats. They sat down together, and for a while they simply watched the river flow past. What's her name? Adrienne asked. Your daughter. Daniel realized with a start that in 5 years of working together, they had rarely discussed his personal life beyond the basic logistics required for scheduling. Emma, he said. She's 9 now, smart as hell and stubborn as a mule. She gets that from you. Daniel laughed. Probably, though her mother would argue she inherited the stubbornness from both sides. Tell me about her. So Daniel did. He told Adrienne about Emma's obsession with dinosaurs, her hatred of vegetables except for carrots, which she claimed were nature's French fries, her dream of becoming a paleontologist or a professional soccer player, or possibly both. He told her about the divorce 4 years ago, the shared custody arrangement, the challenge of being a single parent while maintaining a demanding career. Adrienne listened with complete attention, asking questions that showed she was genuinely interested. Does she know about me? Adrienne asked. Beyond the superhero businesswoman stories? She knows I work for someone very smart and very successful who built her own company. She knows I respect you enormously. Does she know you were supposed to help at my wedding today? Daniel nodded. She helped me pick out my tie this morning. She said it made me look very fancy. Adrienne smiled, but there was sadness in it. What are you going to tell her about why the wedding didn't happen? The truth. In a way she can understand. That sometimes people aren't who they pretend to be, and sometimes being a good friend means helping someone see the truth even when it's hard. Am I your friend, Daniel? The question was quiet, vulnerable. I hope so, Daniel said. Though I'll admit the nature of our friendship is something I'm still trying to figure out. Adrienne was quiet for a moment, watching a boat navigate the river current. In the bridal suite, when you said someone already loved me, did you mean you? Daniel's heart hammered. This was it. The conversation they had been dancing around all day. Yes, he said simply. For how long? I'm not sure exactly when it started. Maybe it was the first time you stayed late to help me revise my resume when I was applying for night classes. Maybe it was when you noticed Emma's birthday and had a gift delivered to my apartment, even though you pretended you didn't know about it. Maybe it was when I watched you fire a senior executive for creating a hostile work environment for junior staff, even though he was bringing in millions in revenue. It wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 small moments over 5 years. Why didn't you say anything? Because you're my boss. Because I'm a single father who drives a 12-year-old sedan and lives in a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens. Because the idea that someone like you would see me as anything more than a competent assistant seemed... He trailed off. Seemed what? Impossible. Adrienne turned to face him fully. Daniel, do you know what I see when I look at you? What? I see someone who never makes excuses. I see someone who treats everyone, from the board members to the cleaning staff, with the same respect. I see someone who rebuilt his entire life after a divorce that wasn't his fault and created a stable, loving home for his daughter. I see someone who takes night classes and reads business journals and pushes himself to grow even when he's exhausted. I see someone who is loyal and honest and kind in a world that doesn't always reward those qualities. Her voice grew softer. And I see someone who knows me. Not the public version of Adrienne Keller, the CEO who gives TED Talks and appears in Forbes magazine. But me. The person who gets overwhelmed at parties and hides in bathrooms. The person who second-guesses every major decision 3 times before acting. The person who's terrified of being alone but equally terrified of letting anyone close enough to hurt her. Adrienne, you asked me in the bridal suite what happens now, and I told you we figure out what we are to each other without professional boundaries. But Daniel, I need you to understand something. What? I'm your employer. There's an enormous power imbalance between us. If we're going to explore whatever this is between us, I need to know you feel free to say no. to walk away, to choose what's right for you and Emma without worrying about your job or your security. Daniel understood what she was offering, an acknowledgement of the complexity and potential problems in any relationship between them. I appreciate that, he said. And I want you to know that I'm choosing to be here right now. Not because you're my boss, but because you're Adrienne. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the afternoon light shift across the water. Finally, Adrienne said, I haven't eaten anything since last night. I was too nervous about the wedding to have breakfast. The wedding that you knew wasn't going to happen. Even fake weddings make you nervous, apparently. Daniel stood and offered his hand. There's a diner 3 blocks from here. Best grilled cheese sandwiches in New York, according to Emma. A 9-year-old's restaurant recommendation. I'm in. They walked to Rosie's Diner, a small neighborhood place with vinyl booths and a counter where regulars sat reading newspapers. The waitress, a woman in her 60s named Dorothy, recognized Daniel immediately. Danny, where's your little girl today? She's with her mom this weekend. Dorothy, this is my friend Adrienne. Dorothy's eyes swept over Adrienne's expensive dress and diamond earrings, but her smile remained warm. Any friend of Danny's is welcome here. What can I get you folks? They ordered grilled cheese sandwiches and coffee. Dorothy brought the food quickly, and Adrienne took a bite with obvious surprise. This is really good, she said. Emma doesn't steer you wrong when it comes to food. They ate in companionable silence. Daniel watched Adrienne relax by degrees, her shoulders loosening, her expression softening. This was a version of her he rarely saw, unguarded, unhurried, just a person enjoying a simple meal. Can I ask you something? Adrienne said. Anything. How did you end up as a personal assistant? Your resume showed you were in project management before. Daniel set down his coffee. After the divorce, I needed a job with flexibility. Emma was only 4 and my ex-wife was struggling with postpartum issues. I needed to be available for pickup and drop-off, for sick days, for emergencies. Most project management positions require 60-hour weeks and constant availability. When I saw your job posting, it mentioned flexible hours for the right candidate. I figured it was worth a shot. And you've stayed for 5 years. The job turned out to be everything I needed. The pay was good, the hours worked with Emma's schedule, and you, he paused, you were different from other executives I'd worked for. You valued results over FaceTime. You understood when I needed to leave for Emma's school events. You created an environment where I could be both a professional and a father. It was never a hardship, Adrienne said. You made my life immeasurably easier. The flexibility was a small price to pay for having someone I could trust completely. Dorothy returned to refill their coffee. As she walked away, Adrienne's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and sighed. Catherine, the press statement has been released. Apparently it's trending on social media. Do you want to read the coverage? No, not yet. Right now, I just want to sit in this diner with you and pretend the world doesn't exist for a little while longer. So that's what they did. They talked about everything and nothing, books they'd read, places they'd traveled, dreams they'd abandoned, and ones they still chased. They talked about Daniel's desire to eventually start his own consulting business and Adrienne's secret wish to take a year off and travel without an agenda. As the afternoon faded toward evening, Dorothy brought them slices of apple pie. On the house, she said with a wink. You two look like you need something sweet. When they finally left the diner, the sun was setting, painting the city in shades of amber and rose. They walked slowly back toward the park where Daniel's car waited. Thank you, Adrienne said as they reached the vehicle. For what? For today. For being honest with me. For bringing me somewhere normal and real. For being you. Daniel opened the passenger door for her, then walked around to the driver's side. As he started the engine, Adrienne spoke again. Daniel, I need to be honest about something. What? I don't know how to do this, any of this. I've spent my entire adult life being strategic and calculated. I'm very good at business relationships, at professional networks, at transactional interactions. But this, whatever's happening between us, I have no roadmap for it. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm probably going to try to control things that shouldn't be controlled and plan things that should be spontaneous. I know. And that doesn't scare you? Daniel pulled into traffic, considering his answer. It terrifies me, he admitted. Not because of you, but because I have Emma to consider. Whatever we do or don't do, it affects her. If this doesn't work, if we try and it falls apart, I can't just quit my job and move on. My entire life is wrapped up in working for you. So what do? We're honest with each other. We move carefully. We protect Emma. And we accept that we're both scared and neither of us knows what we're doing. Adrian reached over and took his hand. That's a terrible plan. I know. Let's try it anyway. Daniel drove them back to Adrian's townhouse on the Upper East Side. It was a beautiful 4-story building that she had renovated herself, filling it with art and books and carefully chosen furniture. But as Daniel pulled up to the curb, he saw Adrian looking at the building with something like dread. "What's wrong?" he asked. "I don't want to go in there alone," she admitted. "I know I should. I know I need to process everything that happened today. But the thought of walking into that empty house..." She trailed off. Daniel understood. The townhouse was supposed to be filled with wedding gifts and flowers, prepared for Adrian and Victor to return as newlyweds. Instead, it would be a monument to failure and betrayal. "Do you want me to come in with you?" he offered. "Just for a little while, until you feel steady." "Would you?" "Of course." They went inside together. The house was elegant and impeccably decorated, but Daniel noticed it felt more like a museum than a home. Everything was beautiful, but nothing was lived in. There were no dishes in the sink, no books left open on tables, no evidence of daily life. "Can I get you something to drink?" Adrian asked, slipping into hostess mode. "Just water." She brought them both glasses, and they sat in the living room. The evening light filtered through tall windows, casting long shadows across the floor. "I keep expecting to feel relieved," Adrian said. "Victor's arrested. The truth is out. It's over. But I just feel empty." "That's normal." "Is it? How would you know?" "Because I felt the same way after my divorce," Daniel said. "Everyone kept telling me I should be happy it was over, that I was free, that I could start fresh. But mostly I just felt like I'd failed at something important. Even though the marriage was wrong, even though ending it was the right choice, I grieved what I'd lost." "What did you lose?" "The future I'd imagined, the family I thought we'd build, the person I thought I was going to be." He set down his water glass. "You lost that too today. Maybe you never loved Victor, but you imagined a future with him, a partnership, a life. That's worth grieving, even if it was based on lies." Adrian's eyes filled with tears. "I feel so stupid." "You're not stupid. You're human. I'm supposed to be smarter than this. I'm supposed to see through people." "You did see through him. That's why he's in custody instead of on a honeymoon spending your money. But not fast enough. People got hurt because I didn't see it sooner." Daniel moved to sit beside her on the sofa. "Adrian, you can't control everything. You can't protect everyone. Sometimes bad things happen despite our best efforts." "I hate that." "I know." She leaned her head against his shoulder, and Daniel wrapped his arm around her. They sat like that as the room grew darker, neither of them speaking, just being present with each other. Finally, Adrian said, "Will you tell me about Emma? More stories?" So Daniel did. He told her about Emma's latest dinosaur obsession, her theory that birds were actually modern dinosaurs trying to remember how to be fierce, her insistence on wearing mismatched socks because matching is boring. He told her about Emma's questions about life and death and why the sky was blue and whether love was real or just chemicals in the brain. "She sounds extraordinary," Adrian said. "She is. She's the best thing I've ever done." "Do you think," Adrian hesitated, "do you think she'd like me?" "I know she would. But Adrian, if we're going to do this, whatever this is, I need you to understand that Emma comes first. Always. If there's ever a conflict between what's good for her and what's good for us, Emma wins." "I wouldn't want it any other way." Daniel's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. "Speaking of Emma, her mom just sent a video." He showed Adrian the clip. Emma was demonstrating a new soccer move, her face scrunched in concentration, her ponytail flying as she kicked the ball. When she scored on her makeshift goal, she threw her arms up in triumph and yelled, "Yes, take that, Gravity!" Adrian laughed. A real laugh, genuine and delighted. "Take that, Gravity?" She's currently mad at gravity because it makes it harder to jump high enough to dunk a basketball. How tall is she? 4'3". So she's got a ways to go before the NBA draft. I keep telling her that, but she's optimistic. They watched the video 3 more times, and each time Adrian's smile grew wider. Daniel realized he was seeing something he'd never seen before. Adrian unguarded and genuinely happy, watching a 9-year-old girl fight with gravity. "Thank you for sharing that with me," Adrian said softly. "I want you to know her when the time is right." "When will that be?" "I don't know. We have to figure this out first, whatever this is." Adrian nodded. They sat together in the darkening room, neither of them quite ready to acknowledge that the day was ending and tomorrow would bring new complications. Finally, Daniel said, "I should go. Let you rest." "I know." But she didn't move away from him. "Adrian?" "Just 5 more minutes, please." So Daniel stayed, holding her in the gathering dark, while outside the city continued its relentless rhythm, indifferent to the small revolution happening in a townhouse on the Upper East Side, where a CEO and her assistant sat together, reimagining the boundaries of their carefully ordered world. When Daniel finally left that evening, he drove home through streets that looked different somehow, as though the city had rearranged itself while he wasn't paying attention. His phone rang as he pulled into his apartment building's parking garage. His ex-wife, Sarah. "Hey," he answered. "Everything okay with Emma?" "She's fine. Asleep already. Soccer practice wore her out." Sarah paused. "I saw the news about your boss's wedding. It's all over social media. Are you okay?" Daniel leaned back against the headrest. "It's been a complicated day." "I bet. Do you need to talk about it?" The question surprised him. He and Sarah had maintained a cordial relationship for Emma's sake, but they rarely discussed anything beyond logistics and their daughter's needs. "I'm okay," he said, "just processing." "Daniel," Sarah's voice softened. "I know that tone. Something happened beyond the wedding cancellation." He closed his eyes. Sarah had known him for 12 years, married to him for 6 of those. She could still read him better than most people. "Things are changing," he admitted, "between me and Adrienne." "Changing how?" "I don't know yet. We're figuring it out." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Are you happy about it or terrified?" "Both." "That sounds about right." He heard her moving around, probably cleaning up after dinner. "For what it's worth, I always thought you cared about her more than you admitted, even to yourself." "Was I that obvious?" "Only to someone who knew you well. You talked about her the way people talk about someone who matters, not just as a boss, but as a person you genuinely respected and cared about." Daniel hadn't expected this conversation, especially not tonight. "Does it bother you, the idea of me with someone else?" "We've been divorced for 4 years, Daniel. I want you to be happy. And I want Emma to see what a healthy relationship looks like, because she sure didn't see that with us." Sarah paused. "But I need to know that whoever you bring into your life is good for Emma. That's my only concern." "Mine too." "Then I trust your judgment. Just be careful, okay? Office romances are complicated enough without adding in the power dynamics of boss and employee." "I know. And Daniel, make sure you're doing this because you want to, not because you feel obligated or because she's your boss." "I am. This is my choice." After they hung up, Daniel sat in his car for a long time, thinking about choices and consequences. Everything was moving so fast. Just this morning, he had been preparing to watch Adrian marry someone else, burying his feelings under layers of professional distance. Now that distance had collapsed, and he had no idea how to rebuild it, or even if he should. His phone buzzed with a text from Adrienne. "Thank you for staying with me tonight. I needed that more than you know." He typed back, "Anytime. Get some rest." "You too. See you Monday?" Daniel hesitated before responding. Monday meant returning to the office, to their professional relationship, to the reality of being employer and employee. But they had already crossed too many lines to pretend nothing had changed. "See you Monday," he confirmed. The weekend passed in a strange blur. Daniel spent Saturday with Emma, watching her soccer game and taking her to their favorite pizza place. She chattered about her week, her friends, and her ongoing battle with gravity. She didn't mention the canceled wedding, and Daniel was grateful. He wasn't ready to explain it yet, not even in 9-year-old terms. On Sunday afternoon, while Emma worked on homework at the kitchen table, Daniel's phone rang. The caller ID showed Keller Technologies. Daniel Hayes, he answered. Mr. Hayes, this is Jennifer from HR. Her voice was professional but cautious. I'm calling to schedule a meeting with you for Monday morning at 9. Ms. Keller has requested your presence along with several other members of senior staff. Daniel's stomach tightened. What's this regarding? I'm not at liberty to discuss the details over the phone. Just please plan to be in the executive conference room at 9. After she hung up, Daniel stared at his phone. A formal HR meeting felt ominous. Was Adrienne establishing distance? Creating professional boundaries? Or was this about something else entirely? He texted Adrienne. HR just called about a Monday meeting. Everything okay? Her response came quickly. Yes, I need to address some things with the team. Nothing to worry about. But Daniel worried anyway. He spent the rest of Sunday trying to distract himself with Emma's homework help and meal prep, but his mind kept circling back to what Monday might bring. Monday morning arrived cold and gray, with rain threatening in heavy clouds. Daniel dressed carefully in his usual professional attire and arrived at Keller Technologies 15 minutes early. The office felt different as he walked through the lobby. People glanced at him and then quickly looked away. Conversation stopped when he passed. Everyone knew about the canceled wedding, and they were all speculating about what it meant. Marcus intercepted him at the elevator. Morning, Daniel. Ms. Keller is already in the conference room. She asked me to bring you in as soon as you arrived. Is she okay? Marcus gave him a long look. She's in CEO mode. You'll see. The executive conference room was on the 20th floor, a glass-walled space with a mahogany table and leather chairs. Adrienne stood at the window, looking out at the city. She wore a charcoal suit that made her look both powerful and unapproachable. Daniel, she said without turning, thank you for coming early. Of course. What's this about? She turned to face him, and Daniel saw that she had rebuilt all her walls. This was not the woman who had leaned against his shoulder in her townhouse or laughed at Emma's video. This was CEO Adrienne Keller, and she was here for business. We need to talk about our working relationship, she said. Daniel's chest tightened. Okay? What happened between us on Saturday was real. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But Daniel, we work together. I'm your employer. There are legal implications, ethical considerations, and professional complications that we can't ignore. I understand. Do you? Because I spent all day yesterday consulting with lawyers and HR specialists. If we pursue any kind of personal relationship, we need to do it correctly. That means disclosure to HR, documentation, clear boundaries between professional and personal interactions. It means you can't report directly to me anymore. It means accepting that people will talk and judge and question your competence and my judgment. Daniel absorbed this. What are you saying? I'm saying that before we move forward with anything personal, I need to restructure the organization. I need to create a position for you that doesn't involve direct reporting to me. And I need to make sure you understand what you'd be giving up. Giving up? Adrienne moved closer to him. Daniel, you're my personal assistant. You have access to everything in my professional and personal life. If we start a relationship and it doesn't work out, you can't continue in that role. It wouldn't be fair to either of us. So I need you to think very carefully about whether this is what you really want. You've already made your decision, haven't you? Daniel asked quietly. You're going to create distance between us professionally regardless of what I say. Yes, because it's the right thing to do. Because I won't put you in a position where your career advancement depends on maintaining a personal relationship with me. And because I need to know that if we do this, we're doing it as equals, not as employer and employee. Daniel understood the wisdom in her approach, but it still stung. So what happens now? Now we have a meeting with senior staff where I announce organizational changes. You're being promoted to Director of Strategic Operations. You'll report to my COO instead of directly to me. Your salary will increase by 40%, and you'll have your own team. You're promoting me. You've earned it. You should have had this title years ago, but I was selfish and wanted to keep you close. And if I don't want the promotion, if I want to stay as your assistant? Adrienne's expression softened slightly. Then you stay as my assistant, and we maintain professional boundaries. Nothing more. That's an ultimatum. No, it's a choice. I'm giving you the choice to build a career independent of me or to keep things as they are. But Daniel, I won't let you sacrifice your professional growth for a relationship that might not work. I care about you too much for that. Before Daniel could respond, voices sounded in the hallway. The other senior staff were arriving. Adrienne's mask slipped back into place. We'll talk after the meeting, she said. The conference room filled with people. Thomas Bradford, the COO, Jennifer Wu from HR, Sarah Chen, the CFO, Marcus and Catherine, and 3 other senior executives. They all looked curious and slightly nervous. Adrienne stood at the head of the table. Thank you all for coming. I know this has been a difficult weekend, and I appreciate your professionalism during a challenging time. She pressed a button on the conference room controls, and a presentation appeared on the screen behind her. As you all know, my wedding was canceled due to my former fiancé's arrest on fraud charges. The investigation is ongoing, but I want to address how this affects our company. She clicked to the next slide showing an organizational chart. First, we need to acknowledge that Victor Lang used his association with me to gain credibility with investors. Some of those investors were our business partners and clients. While the company was not directly involved in his schemes, our reputation has been affected. Over the next several weeks, I'll be personally reaching out to every client and partner to address any concerns. Sarah Chen raised her hand. Have we seen any immediate business impact? 2 potential investors have pulled out of the Series D funding round. However, 3 others have reached out with increased interest, saying they admire how we handled the situation. Overall, I expect minimal financial impact. Adrienne clicked to the next slide. Second, I'm announcing some organizational changes that have been in development for several months. Daniel's pulse quickened. Daniel Hayes has been serving as my personal assistant for 5 years. During that time, he's demonstrated exceptional strategic thinking, crisis management, and operational expertise. Effective immediately, Daniel is being promoted to Director of Strategic Operations. Several people turned to look at Daniel. He kept his expression neutral. Daniel will be developing a new department focused on operational efficiency and strategic initiatives. He'll report directly to Thomas Bradford and will have a team of 4 people working under him. Thomas looked surprised but pleased. Welcome to the senior leadership team, Daniel. Adrienne continued outlining other organizational changes. A new personal assistant would be hired to replace Daniel. Catherine's role was expanding. 2 new vice presidents were being brought in from outside the company. Finally, Adrienne said, I want to address the personal aspect of this situation. Many of you have worked with me for years. You've seen me build this company from nothing. What happened with Victor Lang was a personal failure of judgment, but it doesn't change my commitment to Keller Technologies, or to all of you. Jennifer Wu spoke up. Adrienne, I think I speak for everyone when I say we're behind you 100%. What Victor did was reprehensible, and the fact that you turned a personal betrayal into a criminal prosecution shows the kind of integrity we've always known you had. Others murmured agreement. Daniel saw genuine support in their faces, though he also noticed a few curious glances passing between him and Adrienne. The meeting wrapped up after an hour. People lingered to offer Adrienne personal words of support. Daniel waited until the room cleared, then approached her. Can we talk privately? He asked. Of course. My office. They rode the elevator in silence. Adrienne's office occupied the corner of the 21st floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. Daniel had been in this office thousands of times, but it felt different now. Adrienne closed the door behind them and leaned against her desk. So, what do you think? I think you made a decision without consulting me. I had to. Daniel, I couldn't ask you to choose between your job and a potential relationship with me. That's not fair. But giving me an ultimatum is? It's not an ultimatum. You can refuse the promotion. And if I do, we can't be together. That's the definition of an ultimatum, Adrienne. Her jaw tightened. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need honesty and partnership. Partnership? Adrienne's voice rose slightly. Daniel, I make 200 times what you earn. I have board members and investors and thousands of employees depending on my decisions. How can we possibly be partners when the power dynamic between us is so skewed? The same way anyone builds a partnership, through respect, trust, and communication. It's not that simple. Why not? Adrienne turned away from him, looking out at the city. Because I've spent my entire life being strategic. Every relationship I've had has been calculated. every decision measured. I don't know how to just be with someone without thinking 3 steps ahead. Daniel moved to stand beside her. Then maybe it's time to learn. What if I can't? What if I'm too damaged from building this company and protecting myself for too long? Then we figure it out together. He reached for her hand but stopped himself. They were in her office, visible through the glass walls to anyone who walked by. Professional boundaries. Adrienne noticed the aborted gesture. This is what I mean. We can't even touch without worrying about who might see or what they might think. So we're careful, we're discreet. We follow all the proper protocols with HR. And when it falls apart, when you realize I'm too controlling or too difficult or too broken, what happens to your career then? Daniel met her eyes. Why are you so certain it will fall apart? The question seemed to shake her. She opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. I don't know, she finally admitted. Maybe because nothing good has ever lasted in my personal life. My father died when I was 22. My mother means well, but doesn't understand me. Every relationship I've tried ended badly. I'm successful professionally because I learned to control variables and minimize risk. But I can't control this. I can't minimize the risk of caring about you. No, you can't. That's what makes it real. Adrienne closed her eyes. I'm scared, Daniel. I know, so am I. Then why are you pushing for this? Because I've spent 5 years being safe. 5 years watching you from 3 steps back, telling myself I was content with whatever small part of your life I could have. And I'm tired of being safe. I want to try being brave instead. Adrienne looked at him with something like wonder. How are you so certain? I'm not certain of anything except that I want to try. And I think you do too, or you wouldn't have created this promotion. You wouldn't have spent Sunday consulting lawyers about how to make this work. You're scared, but you're also here, having this conversation instead of just shutting me out. A knock on the door interrupted them. Jennifer Wu from HR stood in the hallway, looking apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, Jennifer said through the glass. Adrienne, we need to discuss the disclosure protocols if Daniel is accepting the promotion. Adrienne opened the door. Come in, Jennifer. The HR director entered with a folder. I've prepared the standard documentation for reorganization reporting lines. Daniel, you'll need to sign off on the new job description and salary agreement, and there's one additional form. She pulled out a document and set it on Adrienne's desk. This is a voluntary disclosure form regarding personal relationships between employees at different organizational levels. It's standard policy for situations where romantic involvement might create actual or perceived conflicts of interest. Daniel stared at the form. We're not in a relationship. Not yet, Jennifer said carefully. But Adrienne has asked me to prepare this proactively. If and when you decide to pursue a personal relationship, this form needs to be filed with HR. It documents that the relationship is consensual, that appropriate reporting structures have been established, and that both parties understand the company's policies. She looked between them. To be clear, Keller Technologies doesn't prohibit inter-office relationships. We just require transparency and appropriate management to prevent favoritism or conflicts of interest. The organizational restructuring Adrienne announced addresses the reporting line issue. This form addresses the disclosure requirement. What happens after we file this? Daniel asked. It goes in a confidential file accessible only to myself and Thomas Bradford as COO. No one else needs to know unless a specific situation requires disclosure. You're both adults, and as long as your relationship doesn't negatively impact the workplace, it's your private business. Adrienne spoke for the first time. Thank you, Jennifer. Can you give us a few minutes? Of course. Jennifer left the folder on the desk and departed, closing the door behind her. Daniel picked up the promotion paperwork and read through it. Director of Strategic Operations, a 40% salary increase, as Adrienne had said, 4 direct reports, an office on the 20th floor, equity options in the company. It was everything he should want. This is a good opportunity, he said quietly. It is. You've earned it. But it's also a test, isn't it? You're seeing if I'll choose career advancement over working directly with you. Adrienne didn't deny it. Maybe. What if I said I'd rather stay as your assistant? Then I'd know you weren't thinking clearly about your future or Emma's. Daniel set down the papers. You're right about one thing. I need to think about Emma first. She's the most important person in my life, and any decision I make has to be good for her. I agree. So before I sign anything or we file any disclosure forms, I need you to meet her. Adrienne looked startled. What? Emma, I need you to meet her, because if we're going to try this, whatever this is, she needs to be part of the equation. Not immediately, not in a serious way, but I need to know that you two could eventually have a relationship. Because if you can't, then none of this matters. Daniel, that's a lot of pressure. I know, but it's reality. I'm a package deal. Me and Emma. If you can't handle that, then I should stay as your assistant, and we should forget about anything personal. Adrienne walked to her desk and sat down, processing this. When? This Saturday. Emma has a soccer game at 10. Come watch. Stay for lunch after if it goes well. No pressure, no expectations. Just meet her. What will you tell her about me? The truth. That you're someone important to me, and I'd like her to meet you. She'll have questions. Probably. She's 9. She has questions about everything. Adrienne smiled slightly. What if she doesn't like me? Then we'll deal with that. But I think she will. Emma's pretty good at seeing through to who people really are. That's what scares me. Daniel understood. Adrienne had spent years building protective walls, carefully managing how people saw her. A 9-year-old wouldn't care about her accomplishments or her net worth. Emma would simply see a person, and she'd judge that person based on how they treated her and her father. Okay, Adrienne said finally. Saturday at 10. Where's the game? Riverside Park, Field 3. Dress casual. Emma's team is the Blue Sharks, though they're not actually very good. She's the striker with the ponytail who argues with the referee about the physics of offsides. Despite the tension, Adrienne laughed. I'll be there. And Adrienne? Just be yourself. Not CEO Adrienne. Just you. What if that's not good enough? It will be. Daniel picked up the promotion paperwork. I'm going to take this home and read it thoroughly. I'll have an answer for you by Wednesday. That's fine. He moved toward the door, then stopped. For what it's worth, I think you're making this more complicated than it needs to be. How so? You're treating this like a business merger, analyzing risk, minimizing variables, establishing protocols. But that's not how relationships work. They're messy and unpredictable, and you can't control them with spreadsheets and disclosure forms. Then how do you control them? You don't. That's the point. He left her office and walked through the maze of cubicles toward his own small workspace. People watched him pass with renewed curiosity. By tomorrow, everyone would know about his promotion. They'd speculate about why, wonder if there was more to the story, gossip about whether something was going on between him and Adrienne. Let them talk, Daniel thought. He was done hiding. That evening, Daniel picked Emma up from her mother's apartment. She bounced out to the car full of energy, her backpack covered in dinosaur pins. Dad, guess what? I scored 2 goals at practice yesterday, and Coach Martinez said I might start in Saturday's game. That's amazing, sweetheart. Will you be there? You promised you wouldn't miss any more games. I'll be there. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about Saturday. Emma climbed into the car and buckled her seatbelt. What about it? Daniel pulled into traffic, choosing his words carefully. There's someone I'd like you to meet. Her name is Adrienne, and she's my boss at work. She's also my friend, and she's going through a hard time right now. I thought it might be nice if she came to watch your game. Emma considered this with the seriousness she applied to all important decisions. Is she the superhero businesswoman from your stories? Yes? Is she nice? Very nice. She's smart and kind, and she works really hard, kind of like you work hard at soccer. Does she like dinosaurs? I don't know. You'll have to ask her. Emma was quiet for a moment. Dad, is Adrienne your girlfriend? The question caught Daniel off guard. Why would you think that? Because you get a funny look on your face when you talk about her, like the look Mr. Peterson gets when he talks about his wife. Daniel glanced at his daughter in the rearview mirror, amazed as always by her perceptiveness. It's complicated, Em. Adrienne and I are friends right now. Maybe we'll be more than friends someday. But I wanted you to meet her first because you're the most important person in my life and your opinion matters. What if I don't like her? Then we'll talk about it, honestly. Emma nodded, apparently satisfied. Okay, she can come to my game, but tell her the Blue Sharks aren't very good, so she shouldn't expect like professional soccer. I'll let her know. And Dad? If she is going to be your girlfriend, she has to pass 3 tests. What tests? First, she has to like dinosaurs, or at least think they're cool. Second, she has to be able to eat pizza without using a fork, because people who eat pizza with forks are suspicious. And third, she has to be nice to you, like really nice, not fake nice. Daniel smiled. Those seem like reasonable tests. I thought so too. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel sat at his kitchen table reading through the promotion paperwork. The job description was comprehensive and challenging. He'd be overseeing major operational initiatives, working directly with senior leadership, and building a team from scratch. It was everything he'd been working toward through those night classes and self-study. But it was also terrifying. Accepting this role meant stepping fully out of Adrian's shadow and proving he could succeed on his own merits. It meant giving up the close daily contact they'd had for 5 years. It meant risk. His phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. Are you still awake? Yes. Reading the job description. And it's impressive, challenging, maybe too challenging. You can handle it. How do you know? Because I've watched you handle crisis after crisis for 5 years. You're ready for this, Daniel. You've been ready for a while. I was just too selfish to let you grow. Daniel typed back, You're not selfish. You're careful with what matters to you. Maybe that's the same thing. It's not. And then to pause then, I'm nervous about Saturday. So am I. What if Emma hates me? She won't. But even if she has reservations, we'll work through them. No decisions need to be made on Saturday. It's just a first meeting. Does she know about us? About the possibility of us? She asked if you were my girlfriend. I told her it's complicated. What did she say? She said you have to pass 3 tests. What tests? Daniel smiled as he typed. You'll have to wait and see. That's not fair. Life rarely is, but Emma's tests are probably more reasonable than the disclosure forms and organizational restructuring. Point taken. Good night, Daniel. Good night, Adrian. Daniel set down his phone and looked at the promotion papers one more time. Then he picked up a pen and signed his name. He was choosing to be brave. Saturday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of October day that felt like summer's last gift before winter settled in. Daniel woke early, made pancakes for Emma, and tried not to let his anxiety show as she ate breakfast and chattered about soccer strategies. Remember, Emma said around a mouthful of pancake, we're playing the Red Tigers today, and they're really good, so don't be disappointed if we lose. Coach says it's about trying our best, not about winning. I'm always proud of you, no matter the score. Is Adrian going to think I'm bad at soccer if we lose? Adrian is coming to meet you, not to scout for the Olympics. She won't care about the score. Emma nodded, but Daniel could see the nervousness in her eyes. His daughter wanted to make a good impression, which both touched and worried him. He didn't want Emma to feel pressure to perform for Adrian's benefit. They arrived at Riverside Park 45 minutes before game time. The field was already busy with kids warming up, parents setting up folding chairs, and coaches organizing equipment. Emma ran off to join her team, her blue jersey bright in the morning sun. Daniel set up 2 chairs on the sideline and checked his phone. A text from Adrian had arrived 10 minutes ago. I'm here. Where do I go? He scanned the parking area and spotted her standing near the entrance, looking completely out of place. She wore jeans and a simple white blouse, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. It was the most casual he'd ever seen her, and she looked younger somehow, less armored. Daniel walked over to meet her. Hey. Hi. Adrian clutched a messenger bag nervously. I wasn't sure what to bring to a kid's soccer game. I stopped at a bookstore and got some things, but now I'm worried it's too much, or too little, or completely inappropriate. Breathe, Daniel said gently. You're overthinking this. I know. I can't help it. I've negotiated billion-dollar deals and given presentations to thousands of people, but meeting a 9-year-old is making me more nervous than anything I've ever done. That's because Emma actually matters to you. The business stuff is just performance. Adrian nodded, taking a deep breath. Okay, I'm ready. Where is she? Daniel pointed toward the field where Emma was practicing penalty kicks with her team. Blue jersey, number 7. The one who just kicked the ball so hard it went over the goal and nearly hit that tree. They watched as Emma ran to retrieve the ball, laughing at herself. "She looks like you," Adrienne said. "She has my eyes and my stubbornness. Everything else is from her mother." They walked toward the sideline together. As they approached, Emma looked up and spotted them. She said something to her teammate and jogged over, her cleats leaving marks in the grass. Up close, Adrienne could see that Emma had Daniel's dark eyes and serious expression, though her smile transformed her face into something mischievous and bright. "Hi," Emma said, stopping a few feet away. "You're Adrienne." "I am, and you're Emma. Your dad's told me a lot about you." "He's told me about you too. He says you run a huge company and you're really smart." "I try to be, but I bet you're smarter. Your dad says you know everything about dinosaurs." Emma's eyes lit up. "Do you like dinosaurs?" "I find them fascinating, though I'll admit I don't know as much as I should. What's your favorite?" "Utahraptor. Most people say Velociraptor because of the movies, but Velociraptors were actually only about the size of a turkey. Utahraptors were way bigger and more dangerous. They had a sickle claw that was like 9 inches long and could disembowel prey with one kick." Adrienne's eyebrows rose. "That's impressively specific." "Emma's nothing if not thorough in her interests," Daniel said. "Did you know," Emma continued, warming to her subject, "that birds are actually modern dinosaurs? So technically dinosaurs never went extinct. They just evolved and got smaller and learned to fly." "I did know that actually," Adrienne said. "One of my college professors was a paleontologist. She used to say that chickens are basically tiny tyrannosaurs with worse PR." Emma laughed delightedly. "That's exactly right. Can you imagine if chickens were still huge? Everyone would be terrified of them." A whistle blew across the field. Emma's coach was calling the team to huddle. "I have to go," Emma said. "But you should sit in those chairs my dad set up. The game is about to start, and we're probably going to lose, but maybe we won't. Statistics suggest a 15% chance of victory based on our record against the Red Tigers." "I'll be rooting for the Blue Sharks," Adrienne assured her. Emma grinned and ran back toward her team. Daniel and Adrienne sat down in the folding chairs. "She's wonderful," Adrienne said quietly. "Absolutely wonderful." "She likes you. I can tell." "How can you tell? We talked for 90 seconds. "She told you about Utahraptors. She only does that with people she wants to impress." They settled in to watch the game. The Red Tigers were indeed much better than the Blue Sharks. Within the first 10 minutes, they had scored twice. Emma fought hard, chasing the ball with determination, but her team was clearly outmatched. "She's fast," Adrienne observed. "She's relentless. Even when they're losing, she never gives up." "She gets that from you." During halftime, with the Blue Sharks down 4-1, Emma came over to their chairs. She was sweaty and grass-stained and grinning despite the score. "We're getting destroyed," she announced cheerfully, "but I almost scored in the 23rd minute. Did you see?" "I saw," Daniel said. "Great footwork getting past that defender." Emma looked at Adrienne. "What did you think?" "I thought you were the best player on the field," Adrienne said honestly. "The score doesn't reflect how hard you're working." "That's what Coach says. He says effort matters more than results." Emma paused, then asked, "Do you believe that? In your business, does effort matter more than results?" The question caught Adrienne off guard. "That's a complicated question." "I'm 9, not stupid. I can handle complicated." Adrienne smiled. "You're right. I'm sorry." "Honestly, in business, results usually matter more than effort. But that doesn't mean effort isn't important. Sometimes you work really hard and things don't work out the way you hoped. But the effort still matters because it teaches you things and makes you stronger for next time." Emma considered this. "Like how even when we lose, I'm getting better at soccer?" "Exactly like that." "Okay, that makes sense." Emma grabbed her water bottle. "I have to go back. Coach wants to try a new formation. He says it's our only hope, which sounds dramatic, but he's probably right." As Emma ran back to her team, Adrienne shook her head in wonder. "She just casually asked me about the relationship between effort and results as measured by business outcomes. At 9 years old, she thinks about things deeply, always has. I can see where she gets it." The second half was more competitive. The Blue Sharks didn't score again, but they prevented the Red Tigers from adding to their lead. When the final whistle blew, the score was 4-1, but Emma's team cheered anyway, celebrating their improved performance. Emma came over to them after the post-game huddle, still energized despite the loss. We didn't win, but we did better in the second half. Coach says that's what matters. She looked at Adrienne. Are you hungry? Dad usually takes me for pizza after games. Adrienne glanced at Daniel, who gave a slight nod. I would love pizza, Adrienne said. They went to Giovanni's, a family-owned pizzeria 3 blocks from the park. It was loud and crowded with families, nothing like the upscale restaurants Adrienne typically frequented. They squeezed into a booth, Emma sliding in next to Adrienne while Daniel sat across from them. When the pizza arrived, Adrienne reached for a fork out of habit. Emma's eyes widened. You eat pizza with a fork? Emma asked, her tone suggesting this was a serious character flaw. Adrienne paused, remembering what Daniel had told her about Emma's tests. She set down the fork and picked up a slice with her hands instead. You're right, Adrienne said. Pizza should be eaten properly. Emma beamed. That's what I always say. Forks are for salad. And soup, Adrienne added. You can't eat soup with a fork. That's crazy. Good point. Spoons for soup. They ate companionably, Emma keeping up a running commentary about her teammates, her upcoming science project on plate tectonics, and her theory that if humans had evolved from dinosaurs instead of apes, the world would be much more interesting. We'd probably have better instincts about danger, Emma said, and maybe we could still have some cool predator features like enhanced vision or really strong legs for running. Or perhaps terrible table manners, Adrienne suggested. Imagine trying to eat pizza with tiny T-Rex arms. Emma laughed so hard that soda nearly came out of her nose. Daniel watched the two of them together and felt something in his chest expand and settle at the same time. After they finished eating, Emma excused herself to wash her hands. The moment she left, Adrienne turned to Daniel. She's incredible, truly. You've done an amazing job raising her. Thank you. She likes you too. How can you tell? She's sitting next to you instead of next to me. That's significant. Emma's very particular about her proximity to people. Adrienne looked pleased. I brought something for her. Is it okay to give it to her, or is that overstepping? What is it? Adrienne pulled a book from her messenger bag. It's a first edition of the Dinosauria, which is considered the definitive scientific text on dinosaur paleobiology. I know it's advanced for her age, but I thought she might appreciate it anyway. Daniel took the book and examined it. It was a beautiful hardcover volume, clearly expensive and carefully selected. This is too much, he said. Is it? I just wanted her to have something meaningful. Adrienne, this book probably cost more than... I don't care what it cost. I care that Emma might enjoy it. Daniel looked at her, understanding what she wasn't saying. Adrienne wanted Emma's approval, wanted to be accepted into their small family, and she was using the tools she knew best, research and carefully chosen gifts. She'll love it, Daniel said, but you don't have to buy her affection. She already likes you. I'm not trying to buy her affection. I'm trying to show her that I pay attention to what matters to her. Emma returned to the table, sliding back into the booth. Adrienne handed her the book. I got you something. Your dad mentioned you were interested in paleontology, so I thought you might like this. Emma's eyes went wide as she examined the book. She carefully opened it, running her fingers over the illustrations and photographs. This is amazing, she breathed. This has articles by Jack Horner and Philip Currie and Mary Schweitzer. These are like the most famous paleontologists in the world. I'm glad you like it. Emma looked up at Adrienne with complete sincerity. This is the best present anyone's ever given me except for the microscope my grandma got me last year. Thank you so much. You're very welcome. Emma immediately began reading one of the chapters, completely absorbed. Daniel and Adrienne smiled at each other over her bent head. After lunch, they walked back toward the park, where their cars were parked. Emma held Adrienne's hand as they walked, chattering about dinosaur migration patterns and fossil preservation. Adrienne listened with genuine interest, asking questions that showed she was truly engaged. When they reached the parking area, Emma hugged Adrienne spontaneously. Thank you for coming to my game and for the book and for explaining about effort and results. You're really nice. Adrienne looked stunned by the hug, but recovered quickly, embracing Emma gently. Thank you for letting me come. I had a wonderful time. Emma pulled back and looked seriously at Adrienne. Are you going to be my dad's girlfriend? Emma, Daniel said, mortified. What? I'm just asking. Adrienne knelt down so she was at Emma's eye level. That's a fair question. Your dad and I are very good friends right now. We might become more than friends eventually, but we're taking things slowly because we want to make sure we do everything right. Is that okay with you?" Emma thought about this carefully. If you do become his girlfriend, will you still be nice to him? Because he deserves someone who's really nice to him, not just pretend nice. "I will always be as kind to your father as I possibly can. I promise." "Okay then. I think you passed the tests." "There were tests?" Emma grinned. "You like dinosaurs, you don't eat pizza with a fork, and you're nice to my dad. Those were the three things." Adrienne laughed. "Well, I'm honored to have passed." After Emma ran ahead to Daniel's car, Adrienne stood with Daniel in the parking lot. "That went better than I hoped," she said. "She loves you." That's not an exaggeration. Emma doesn't give her approval easily, but when she does, it's complete. "I love her too." Is that strange to say after one meeting? No, it makes sense. She's easy to love. They stood looking at each other, both wanting to move closer, but aware that they were in public where Emma or anyone else might see. "I should go," Adrienne said. "Let you have your weekend with Emma." "Wait. Before you leave, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I signed the promotion papers. I'm accepting the position as Director of Strategic Operations." Adrienne's face lit up. "Daniel, that's wonderful. You won't regret it." "I know, but I also want you to know why I'm accepting. It's not just for the career advancement or the salary increase. It's because you're right about the power dynamic. If we're going to try to build something real between us, we need to be equals, or as equal as we can be. We'll file the disclosure forms on Monday. Together? Together." Emma honked the car horn impatiently. Daniel laughed and waved at her. "I should go before she decides to drive herself home." "Daniel," Adriana said softly, "thank you for today, for letting me into this part of your life. It means more than you know. You're worth the risk." He walked to his car where Emma was already buckled in and bouncing with excitement. "So?" Daniel asked as he started the engine. "What's the verdict?" "I like her a lot. She's smart and she listens when people talk. And she gave me that amazing book, and she thinks dinosaurs are cool. Plus, she was really nice to you." "I watched." "You watched?" "I pay attention, Dad. You smile differently when you look at her. It's like you're happy but also nervous, like when I'm about to take a penalty kick in a tied game." Daniel pulled into traffic, amazed once again by his daughter's perception. "That's a pretty accurate description. So are you going to date her?" "Maybe. We're still figuring things out." "Well, I think you should. She's way better than Victor was." Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You met Victor?" "Once, remember? When he came to pick you up from the office that time I was sick, and you brought me to work. He didn't even look at me. He just talked to you about boring business stuff and then left. I told you then I didn't like him." Daniel vaguely remembered the incident. Emma had been recovering from the flu, and Victor had stopped by unexpectedly. At the time, Daniel had dismissed Emma's dislike as childish grumpiness from being sick. "You were right about him," Daniel said. "I know. Kids can tell when adults are fake. We're good at that." Emma paused. "Adrienne isn't fake. When she said she had a wonderful time, she meant it. I could tell." "How could you tell?" Her eyes smiled at the same time as her mouth. When people are fake, only their mouth smiles. Daniel felt a surge of love for his wise, observant daughter. "When did you get so smart about people?" "I've always been smart. You just don't always notice because you're busy being smart about work stuff." They spent the rest of the weekend in their usual routine. Emma worked on homework while Daniel prepared meals. They watched a nature documentary about the Cretaceous period, went to the library, and played board games. Emma read her new dinosaur book every spare moment, occasionally reading passages aloud that she found particularly interesting. On Sunday evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Daniel's phone rang. Adrienne. "Is it too late to call?" she asked. "Not at all. Emma's asleep. I wanted to thank you again for yesterday. I can't stop thinking about it. Emma hasn't stopped talking about you or that book. You made a serious impression." "She made an impression on me too. Daniel, I need to tell you something." "What?" Adrienne's voice grew serious. "I've been thinking about what I said in my office. About how I'm scared and I don't know how to do relationships without being strategic and calculating, and I realized something. What's that? I've been approaching this whole situation like a business problem, creating organizational structures, establishing protocols, managing risk. But yesterday, watching you with Emma, seeing how you are as a father, how she looks at you with complete trust and love, it made me realize that what I've been doing is the opposite of what's needed. I don't understand. Relationships aren't about control or strategy. They're about trust and vulnerability and letting someone see you without all the protective layers. And I've been so afraid of that vulnerability that I've been trying to create safety through structure instead of through connection. Daniel was quiet, letting her work through her thoughts. When Emma hugged me, Adrienne continued, I felt something I haven't felt in years. Acceptance. Pure, uncomplicated acceptance. She didn't care that I run a company, or how much money I have, or what my credentials are. She just saw me as a person, and she decided I was worth caring about. That's Emma. She sees people clearly. I want to be like that with you. I want to stop trying to control all the variables and just be present. But Daniel, I don't know if I can. I've spent so long being strategic that I'm not sure I remember how to just be. Then we'll figure it out together. You don't have to change who you are completely. Your strategic thinking is part of what makes you remarkable. You just need to learn when to use it and when to let it go. How do I know the difference? Start by asking yourself whether you're trying to solve a problem or whether you're trying to protect yourself from feeling something. If it's the latter, that's when you need to let go. Adrienne was quiet for a moment. That's wise. I learned it from Emma's therapist. After the divorce, Emma had some anxiety issues. The therapist taught her to distinguish between problems she could solve and feelings she just needed to experience. It helped her a lot. Maybe it could help you too. Maybe it could, Adrienne paused. I'm filing the disclosure forms tomorrow, with or without you, because I need to stop hedging my bets and commit to what I want. And what do you want? I want to try. With you. Properly try. Not just think about trying or plan for trying. Actually do it. Daniel felt warmth spread through his chest. I want that too. It's going to be messy. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to try to control things I shouldn't control and probably drive you crazy with my need to plan everything. And I'm going to be overly cautious because I'm scared of getting hurt again. I'm going to second-guess myself and worry about Emma and probably move slower than you'd like. We're both going to mess this up in different ways. So we're agreed that this is going to be a disaster? Daniel laughed. A beautiful disaster. I can work with that. They talked for another hour, discussing logistics and boundaries and how to navigate their new working relationship. They decided to keep things private at the office for now, to give the organizational changes time to settle before adding the complexity of a public relationship. They agreed to move slowly, to prioritize Emma's needs, and to be honest with each other even when it was difficult. When they finally hung up, Daniel sat in his quiet living room and thought about how much his life had changed in 1 week. 7 days ago, he had been preparing to watch the woman he loved marry someone else, resigned to a future of professional distance and unspoken feelings. Now he was starting a new job, navigating a relationship with that same woman and introducing her to the most important person in his life. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was exactly right. Monday morning brought the reality of their new professional dynamic. Daniel arrived at his new office on the 20th floor to find it already set up with furniture, a computer, and a nameplate that read Daniel Hayes, Director of Strategic Operations. Thomas Bradford stopped by at 8:30. Welcome to Senior Leadership. We have a strategic planning meeting at 9. I'll walk you through the current initiatives and where I see your team fitting in. The meeting was intense. Daniel found himself participating in discussions about market expansion, operational efficiency, and long-term strategic goals. He contributed ideas that were taken seriously, challenged assumptions, and felt his mind stretching in new directions. Adrienne was at the meeting too, but she sat across the table and treated him with the same professional courtesy she showed all senior staff. No one would have guessed from watching them that they had talked for hours the night before, or that significant disclosure forms sat in Jennifer Wu's confidential files. After the meeting, as people filtered out, Adrienne caught Daniel's eye briefly. She smiled, just a small smile, barely noticeable to anyone else. But Daniel saw it and understood. They were doing this together, taking the risk. The week progressed in a blur of new responsibilities. Daniel interviewed candidates for his team, developed strategic proposals, and learned the rhythms of senior leadership. It was challenging and exhausting and deeply satisfying. On Wednesday evening, after most people had left the office, Adrienne sent Daniel a text. "My office, 5 minutes." When Daniel arrived, she was standing at the window, looking out at the city lights. "Close the door," she said. Daniel did, his pulse quickening. Adrienne turned to face him. "We've been very professional all week." "We have." "I'm tired of being professional." She crossed the space between them and kissed him. It was gentle at first, tentative, as though they were both afraid of breaking something fragile. Then it deepened, becoming something more urgent, more real. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless. "I've wanted to do that since Saturday," Adrienne admitted. "I've wanted it for 5 years. That's a long time to wait." "You were worth the wait." They stood close together, Adrienne's hand resting over Daniel's heart. "This is going to work," she said quietly. "Isn't it?" "I think so. If we're brave enough to let it." "Then let's be brave." Outside Adrienne's office, the city continued its endless rhythm. Inside, two people who had spent years hiding their feelings stood together, finally honest about what they wanted and willing to fight for it. The future was uncertain, the challenges were real, the risks were significant. But standing there in each other's arms, they both believed that some things were worth the risk of everything. The kiss in Adrienne's office marked a turning point, but it was what happened in the weeks that followed that truly tested whether they could build something real from 5 years of carefully maintained distance. The first real challenge came 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday afternoon when Daniel was in the middle of presenting a major operational efficiency proposal to the board. He had spent 2 weeks preparing, working late nights while Emma did homework at the table beside him, refining every detail until the plan was flawless. Halfway through his presentation, his phone buzzed insistently in his pocket. He ignored it the first time, and the second, but when it rang a third time in rapid succession, he knew something was wrong. "Excuse me," he said to the room full of executives. "I need to take this." He stepped into the hallway and answered. It was Sarah, and her voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "Daniel, Emma fell during recess. They're taking her to Mount Sinai. She's conscious, but she hit her head pretty hard, and they think her arm might be broken." The world tilted. "I'm on my way." He rushed back into the conference room where Adrienne was listening to Thomas Bradford explain some budget figures. All eyes turned to Daniel. "I'm sorry, I have to leave. There's a family emergency." He grabbed his laptop and headed for the door. Behind him, he heard Adrienne's voice. "We'll reschedule. Thomas, please continue Daniel's presentation from his notes. I need a moment." She caught up with Daniel at the elevator. "What happened?" "Emma. She fell at school, possible concussion, and broken arm." "Which hospital?" "Mount Sinai." "I'm coming with you." "Adrienne, you can't just leave the board meeting. Watch me." She pulled out her phone and texted someone rapidly. "Thomas can handle it. Emma needs you, and you need support." They drove to the hospital in Adrienne's car, Marcus at the wheel while Daniel sat in the back seat trying to keep his breathing steady. Adrienne held his hand without saying anything, just being present. At the hospital, they found Sarah in the emergency room waiting area. She stood when she saw Daniel, relief flooding her face. "She's okay. They're doing x-rays now, but the doctor said the head injury looks minor. Definitely going to have a bruise, but no signs of serious trauma." Daniel sagged with relief. Then Sarah noticed Adrienne. "Oh, hi. I'm Sarah, Daniel's ex-wife." "Adrienne Keller. I work with Daniel." Sarah's eyebrows rose slightly, but she had the grace not to comment on the fact that Daniel's boss had accompanied him to the emergency room. A nurse appeared. "Mr. Hayes, you can see your daughter now." Daniel followed the nurse to a treatment room where Emma sat on an examination table, her left arm in a temporary splint. Her face was streaked with tears, and she had a spectacular bruise forming on her forehead. "Dad!" She reached for him with her good arm. Daniel hugged her carefully. "I'm here, sweetheart. You're going to be okay." "It hurts," Emma said, her voice small and scared. I know, but the doctors are going to fix you up. What happened? I was trying to do a backflip off the monkey bars because Jason said girls can't do backflips and I wanted to prove him wrong, but I guess I'm not very good at backflips yet. Despite everything, Daniel almost smiled. No more trying to prove Jason wrong by doing dangerous things, okay? Okay. Emma noticed Adrienne standing in the doorway. Adrienne, what are you doing here? Your dad was worried about you, so I came to make sure you were both all right. Emma's eyes filled with fresh tears. I'm sorry I interrupted your work. Dad said you had an important meeting. Adrienne moved closer and crouched beside the examination table. Emma, listen to me. No meeting, no matter how important, is more important than making sure you're safe. Don't ever apologize for needing your father. But Dad's presentation can be rescheduled. You can't. Adrienne gently touched Emma's uninjured hand. How's the arm feeling? Like it's broken, which it probably is because it hurts a lot and it's all swollen. A doctor entered with X-ray results. The arm was indeed fractured, requiring a cast for 6 to 8 weeks. Emma chose bright blue for the cast color and insisted that everyone sign it, including Adrienne. As the orthopedic technician fitted the cast, Emma looked at her father. Does this mean I can't play soccer? Not for a while, sweetheart. Emma's face crumpled. But we have playoffs in 3 weeks. Coach is counting on me. Your health is more important than playoffs. But the team needs me. Fresh tears spilled down Emma's cheeks. I'm the top scorer. Without me, we'll definitely lose. Daniel held her good hand while she cried, feeling helpless in the face of her disappointment. This was the part of parenting he struggled with most. The moments when he couldn't fix things, couldn't make the pain go away, could only be present while his daughter grieved something that mattered to her. Adrienne spoke quietly. Emma, can I tell you something about losing? Emma looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. What? A few weeks ago, I lost something too. I was supposed to get married, and instead I found out the person I thought I loved was lying to me. I had to cancel my wedding in front of 200 people and admit that I'd made a terrible mistake. That's different. You didn't want to marry that guy anyway because he was bad. That's true. But I still lost something. I lost the future I'd imagined, even if it was based on lies. And I lost the belief that I was smart enough to always see through people who wanted to hurt me. Emma considered this. Did it make you sad? Very sad. For a long time. What made you feel better? Adrienne glanced at Daniel, then back at Emma. Honestly, your dad did. He reminded me that sometimes we lose things we care about, but that doesn't mean we stop trying. It just means we try differently next time. But I can't try differently with soccer. I just can't play. No, but you can support your team in other ways. You can help coach from the sidelines. You can study strategy and learn new things while you heal. And when your arm is better, you'll come back stronger and smarter than before. Emma absorbed this, her crying gradually subsiding. Do you really think so? I know so. Some of my best business strategies came from times when I was forced to step back and think instead of just doing. The doctor finished with the cast and gave them care instructions. Emma would need to follow up in 2 weeks, keep the cast dry, and take it easy for the next several days. Sarah drove Emma home while Daniel and Adrienne returned to the office. In the car, Daniel finally let himself process what had happened. Thank you, he said, for coming with me, for what you said to Emma, for all of it. You don't need to thank me. That's what people do when they care about each other. The board meeting went fine without us. Thomas is perfectly capable of handling presentations. That's why we have a leadership team. Daniel leaned his head back against the seat. This is what dating me looks like. Emergency room visits and canceled meetings, and a 9-year-old who thinks backflips are a good idea. I know. I'm still here. For now. But Adrienne, this was just one incident. There will be more. Emma will have school plays and science fairs and soccer games and times when she needs me, and I'll have to choose her over work, over us. I know that too. Daniel, I'm not expecting you to change who you are or how you prioritize your life. Emma comes first. I understand that. Do you? Because I'm not sure I understand it myself sometimes. I spent years trying to be the perfect employee and the perfect father, and I was mediocre at both because I was splitting myself in half. Adrienne reached over and took his hand. Then stop splitting yourself. Be who you are. A father who also happens to be an excellent strategic thinker. Bring those parts of yourself together instead of keeping them separate. That's easier said than done. I know, but I'm willing to figure it out with you. They arrived back at the office to find that Thomas had successfully completed the presentation and the board had approved Daniel's operational efficiency plan. There was champagne in the executive conference room and congratulations from senior staff. But Daniel's mind was still at the hospital with Emma, worried about her pain, her disappointment about soccer, and how she would manage school with a broken arm. Adrienne pulled him aside. Go home. Be with Emma. We'll celebrate later. I should at least finish out the day. Daniel, go home. That's not a suggestion from your girlfriend. It's an order from your boss. He smiled despite himself. Using your authority to make me take care of my daughter? Absolutely. Now go. Daniel went home to find Emma on the couch with Sarah, watching a nature documentary and eating ice cream with her good hand. Her eyes were still puffy from crying, but she seemed calmer. Hey, sweetheart, how are you feeling? Tired, and my head hurts, but the ice cream helps. Sarah stood. I should go. Call me if you need anything tonight. After Sarah left, Daniel sat beside Emma and pulled her against his side carefully, mindful of her injured arm. I'm sorry about soccer, he said. Me too. But maybe Adrienne was right. Maybe I can learn things while I'm healing that will make me better when I come back. That's a very mature perspective. Emma was quiet for a moment. Dad, is Adrienne your girlfriend now? Like, officially? Daniel considered how to answer. Yes, officially. How do you feel about that? I think it's good. She came to the hospital even though she had important work things. That means she cares about us. She does care about us. Do you love her? The question was so direct, so innocent that Daniel felt his throat tighten. Yes, I think I do. Does she love you? I hope so. We haven't said it to each other yet. Emma nodded wisely. You should tell her. People should know when they're loved. You're very wise for 9 years old. I know, it's a gift. Over the following weeks, they settled into a new rhythm. Emma adapted to life with a cast, learning to write with her non-dominant hand and accepting her role as assistant coach for the Blue Sharks. Daniel threw himself into his new position, building his team and implementing strategies that were already showing results. And slowly, carefully, he and Adrienne built something neither of them had experienced before. A relationship based on honesty and vulnerability rather than strategy and control. They had dinner together twice a week, alternating between quiet restaurants and Adrienne's townhouse. They talked about everything, their childhoods, their fears, their dreams for the future. Adrienne shared stories about building her company from nothing, about the lonely years when success came at the cost of genuine connection. Daniel told her about his marriage to Sarah, the slow dissolution of something that had started with love, but ended in two people who wanted different things from life. 6 weeks after Emma's accident, they attended the Blue Sharks playoff game together. Emma's cast had come off the day before, but she was still too recently healed to play. Instead, she stood on the sideline with her coach, calling out encouragement and strategic suggestions to her teammates. The Blue Sharks were losing by 2 goals at halftime. During the break, Emma gathered the team around her. Okay, listen, she said with the authority of someone who had spent 6 weeks analyzing every aspect of their gameplay. We're playing too defensively. The Red Tigers expect us to protect the goal, so that's what they're planning for. But if we switch to aggressive offense in the second half, we'll catch them off guard. Her coach raised an eyebrows. That's risky, Emma. I know, but we're already losing. We have nothing to lose by trying something different. The coach considered, then nodded. All right, let's try it. The second half was transformed. The Blue Sharks came out attacking, pressing forward with an aggression they'd never shown before. Within 10 minutes, they scored. Then again. The game ended in a tie, forcing sudden death overtime. In the final minute, Emma's best friend Sophia scored the winning goal. The Blue Sharks erupted in celebration, and Emma was at the center of it despite not having played a single minute. After the game, as they walked to the parking lot, Emma was still buzzing with excitement. Did you see that? We won! My strategy worked. You were amazing, Adrienne said, a natural coach. Maybe that's what I'll be when I grow up. A soccer coach who's also a paleontologist. I could coach dinosaur soccer. That would be incredibly entertaining to watch. Daniel watched the two of them together, his daughter and the woman he loved, and felt something settle in his chest. This was right. Complicated and messy and sometimes difficult, but fundamentally right. That evening, after dropping Emma at Sarah's apartment, Daniel and Adrienne went back to her townhouse. They had been careful about physical intimacy, moving slowly out of respect for the complexity of their situation. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like they had crossed some invisible threshold. They sat on Adrienne's couch with wine, talking about the game, about Emma's future as a dinosaur soccer coach, about the upcoming quarterly board meeting. The conversation was comfortable, easy, full of the small intimacies that had developed between them. Finally, Adrienne set down her wine glass and turned to face Daniel. "I need to tell you something." "What?" "I love you. I've been afraid to say it because saying it makes it real, and making it real means I could lose it. But Emma was right when she said people should know when they're loved. So I'm telling you. I love you, Daniel Hayes." Daniel felt emotion rise in his throat. "I love you too. I've loved you for a long time." "How long?" He thought back through 5 years of carefully hidden feelings. "There was a day about 3 years ago. You were working late on a presentation and I brought you dinner. You were so focused you didn't even notice me come in. I watched you work for a few minutes. The way you bit your lip when you were concentrating. The way you moved your hands when you were thinking through a problem. And I thought, I want to watch her do this for the rest of my life. That's when I knew." Adrienne's eyes glistened. 3 years? 3 years of telling myself it was impossible, that you would never see me as anything but your assistant, that I was foolish for even hoping. "I saw you, Daniel. I always saw you. I was just too afraid to do anything about it." They moved closer together, the space between them charged with everything they had finally said aloud. "I'm not afraid anymore," Adrienne whispered. "Neither am I." They kissed with a tenderness that held all the weight of their journey, from employer and employee to friends to something neither of them had words for but both understood completely. Later, as they lay together in the quiet darkness of Adrienne's bedroom, Daniel's phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Did you tell Adrienne you love her yet?" He smiled and texted back. "Yes." "Did she say it back?" "Yes." "Good. Now you can stop being nervous all the time." He showed the text to Adrienne, who laughed softly against his shoulder. "She's very perceptive," Adrienne said. "She is. Are you ready for what it means to have a very perceptive 9-year-old in your life?" "I think so, though I reserve the right to panic occasionally." Deal. The next few months brought their own challenges. There was the inevitable office gossip when people learned about their relationship, though the formal disclosure to HR and the clear organizational boundaries helped minimize problems. There was the learning curve of blending their lives, coordinating schedules, navigating holidays, figuring out how to balance work demands with personal time. There was also the ongoing legal case against Victor Lang. His trial was scheduled for February, and Adrienne would have to testify. The thought of facing him again, of reliving the betrayal in front of a courtroom full of strangers, made her anxious for weeks. The night before the trial, she stayed at Daniel's apartment. Emma was with Sarah, giving them privacy. Adrienne paced the small living room, too nervous to sit still. "What if I freeze up there?" she asked. "What if I can't answer the questions coherently?" "You won't freeze. You're one of the strongest people I know." "You don't understand. When I'm in business mode, I'm fine. I can handle anything, but this is personal. This is about admitting I was fooled, that I let someone use me." Daniel pulled her down onto the couch beside him. "You weren't fooled for long, and when you discovered the truth, you didn't fall apart. You built a case that's going to put him in prison for years. That's not weakness, Adrienne. That's incredible strength. It doesn't feel strong. It feels humiliating. Because you're judging yourself more harshly than you judge anyone else. You expect yourself to be perfect, to never make mistakes. But that's not realistic. Everyone gets deceived sometimes. It doesn't make you weak or stupid. It makes you human." Adrienne leaned her head against his shoulder. "What if people think I'm a terrible judge of character? What if it affects the company?" "Then you'll handle it the way you handle everything else, with integrity and honesty." "But Adrienne, most people are going to see this the way I see it. As a powerful woman who refused to be a victim, who turned a personal betrayal into a criminal prosecution, and who protected others from being hurt. The trial lasted 3 days. Adrienne's testimony was clear and damning. She presented evidence methodically, answered questions without hesitation, and maintained her composure even when Victor's lawyer tried to suggest she had been complicit in his schemes. Daniel sat in the courtroom gallery every day, a quiet presence that Adrienne could look to when things got difficult. Emma came the final day, missing school with Sarah's permission because she wanted to support Adrienne. When the jury returned with a guilty verdict on all counts, Emma grabbed Adrienne's hand and squeezed it tight. "You did it," Emma whispered. "You beat the bad guy." Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Catherine Mills managed the press while Marcus cleared a path to the car. But before they left, Adrienne stopped and turned to face the cameras. "I want to say something," she said. Catherine looked nervous but nodded. Adrienne spoke directly to the assembled media. "What Victor Lang did was criminal. He hurt me and he hurt others who trusted him, but this case was never about revenge. It was about accountability. It was about ensuring that someone who preys on people's trust and hope faces consequences. I'm grateful to the district attorney's office, to the jury, and to everyone who came forward to testify. And I want other victims of fraud to know that coming forward is hard, but it's worth it. Thank you." She turned and walked to the car without taking questions. Inside, with Marcus driving and Daniel beside her, Adrienne finally let herself exhale. "That was perfect," Daniel said. "I meant every word." Emma leaned forward from the back seat. "Adrienne, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Are you going to marry my dad?" Daniel choked on air. "Emma!" "What? I'm just asking. You love each other and you're together all the time and you're really good together. So are you going to get married or not?" Adrienne met Daniel's eyes, saw the panic and hope warring in his expression. "I don't know," Adrienne said honestly. "Your dad and I haven't talked about that yet." "Would it bother you if we did?" Emma thought carefully. "No, I think it would be good. You make Dad happy and he makes you happy. Plus you're teaching me about dinosaurs and business strategy, which is cool. And if you got married, you could officially be my stepmom instead of just my dad's girlfriend." "That's a lot to think about," Daniel said. "Not really," Emma countered. "Either you want to be a family or you don't. Seems pretty simple to me." She sat back in her seat, apparently satisfied that she'd made her point. That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Daniel and Adrienne sat on his small balcony looking at the city lights. "Sorry about the marriage interrogation," Daniel said. "Don't apologize. She asked a legitimate question." "It's too soon. We've only been together for a few months." "Is it too soon? Or are we just scared?" Daniel looked at her. "What are you saying?" Adrienne took a breath. "I'm saying that I've spent my whole life being strategic and careful. I've planned every major decision, analyzed every risk, and tried to control every variable. And it's made me successful in business but miserable in life. For once, I want to do something that isn't strategic. I want to do something because it feels right, even if it's terrifying." "Adrienne, I'm not proposing. I'm just saying that when I think about my future, you're in it, you and Emma. I don't need a timeline or a plan. I just need to know that we're building towards something real." Daniel pulled her close. "We are. I promise you, we are." Spring arrived with sudden warmth, transforming the city almost overnight. Emma's arm had healed completely, and she was back to playing soccer with renewed passion and improved strategy. Daniel's department was thriving, with operational improvements already saving the company millions, and Adrienne was lighter somehow, as though the trial's conclusion had released a weight she'd been carrying for months. On a Saturday in early May, almost 6 months after the canceled wedding, Adrienne invited Daniel and Emma to dinner at her townhouse. She had been mysteriously secretive about the evening, telling them only to dress casually and come hungry. When they arrived, the house smelled amazing. Adrienne had cooked, not catered, a meal of pasta and salad and homemade bread. "You made all this yourself?" Emma asked, impressed. "I did, with some help from online tutorials and 3 phone calls to my mother, but yes, I made it." They ate together at Adrienne's dining table, talking and laughing. Emma told elaborate stories about her teacher's attempts to explain fractions, while Adrienne shared carefully edited anecdotes about difficult board members. Daniel watched them together and felt his heart expand with something too big to name. After dinner, Adrienne led them to the living room where she had set up a presentation on her television. "What's this?" Daniel asked. "Something I've been working on." "Emma, I wanted to show you first because it was partly your idea." She started the presentation. It was a business plan for a new Keller Technologies initiative, a STEM education program for underprivileged youth focusing on science, technology, engineering, and math. The program would provide free after-school classes, mentorship opportunities, and resources for kids who wanted to pursue careers in technical fields. "I've been thinking about what you said after your accident," Adrienne told Emma, "about how sometimes losing something teaches you to try differently. And I realized that I've been so focused on building my company that I forgot why I started it in the first place. I wanted to create opportunities for people who don't usually get them." Emma's eyes were wide. "This is amazing." The program launches in September. We're starting with 3 schools in underserved neighborhoods. "And Emma, I was hoping you might help me design the paleontology component of the science curriculum." "Really? You want my help?" "You're the dinosaur expert. Who better to help?" Emma launched herself at Adrienne, hugging her tightly. Adrienne caught her and held on, blinking back tears. After Emma had gone to explore Adrienne's book collection, Daniel pulled Adrienne aside. "This is incredible. When did you have time to develop all this?" "I've been working on it for months. Ever since the trial ended, I needed something positive to focus on, something that mattered beyond profit margins and market share." "It's going to make a real difference." "I hope so. Daniel, I've spent so much of my life building walls and protecting myself. But being with you and Emma has shown me that the best things happen when you stop protecting yourself and start opening up to possibility." She took his hands in hers. "I don't know what our future looks like. I don't have a plan or a strategy, but I know that I want to build it with you, both of you, however that looks, whatever that means." Daniel kissed her softly. "I want that too." "Yeah?" "Yeah." Emma's voice called from the other room. "Are you guys being mushy? Because I can come back if you need more mushy time." They laughed, breaking apart. "We're done being mushy," Adrienne called back. Emma appeared in the doorway with a book. "Good, because I found a first edition of On the Origin of Species, and I need to know if I can read it or if it's too valuable to touch." "You can read it, carefully." As Emma settled onto the couch with the book, Daniel and Adrienne sat together, watching her. The evening light filtered through the windows, painting everything in shades of gold. "This is what I want," Adrienne said quietly. "Nights like this. The 3 of us together, Emma reading in the corner while we talk about nothing and everything. Simple moments that matter more than any business deal or career achievement." "You've changed," Daniel observed. "So have you. We both have." "Is that good?" "I think so. I think we've both become more of who we actually are, instead of who we thought we had to be." They sat in comfortable silence, Emma occasionally reading interesting passages aloud, the evening settling around them like a promise. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep on Adrienne's couch during a documentary about the Jurassic period, Daniel carried her to his car while Adrienne walked beside him. "Thank you for tonight," Daniel said. "For the program, for including Emma, for all of it. Thank you for taking a chance on me, for seeing past the CEO to the person underneath, for loving me even when I was too scared to love you back. I'd do it again, every time." Adrienne kissed him goodbye, then leaned into the car to gently touch Emma's sleeping face. "Sweet dreams, dinosaur girl." As Daniel drove home through the quiet streets, Emma stirred in the back seat. "Dad?" Her voice was sleepy. "Yeah, sweetheart?" "I think Adrienne is family now, not because of paperwork or rules, just because she is." "I think you're right." "Good, I'm glad." She drifted back to sleep, leaving Daniel alone with his thoughts and the steady rhythm of the city at night. A year had passed since the morning Daniel had stood in a bridal suite, watching Adrienne prepare for a wedding that would never happen. A year since he had whispered the truth that changed everything. A year since they had started the slow, careful work of building something real from the foundation of trust they had established over 5 years of professional partnership. Now, as he pulled into his parking space and carefully carried his sleeping daughter upstairs, Daniel thought about how much had changed and how much had stayed the same. He was still a single father, still devoted to Emma above all else. Adrienne was still driven and ambitious, still building her company and pushing boundaries. But now they did it together. Now they had each other to lean on when things got hard, to celebrate with when things went well, to remind each other that success meant nothing without people to share it with. The next morning, Daniel woke to find a text from Adrienne. "I love you. Just wanted you to know." He smiled and typed back, "I love you too. Coffee later?" Always. It was simple. It was ordinary. It was exactly what both of them had been searching for without knowing it. Not a fairy tale ending, but a real beginning. Not perfection, but something better. Partnership, honesty, and the courage to be vulnerable with someone who saw all of you and chose to stay anyway. In a city of 8 million people, two of them had found each other despite every reason they should have remained apart. A CEO and her assistant, an employer and employee. Two people divided by circumstance, but united by something stronger than any professional boundary or social expectation. They had built something real, something lasting, something worth every risk they had taken to get there. And in a small apartment in Queens, while a 9-year-old girl slept peacefully in the next room, Daniel Hayes looked at his phone and knew that he had finally found what he had been looking for all along. Not a job or a title or a salary increase. Not status or security or professional advancement, but love. Real, complicated, messy, beautiful love. And it was more than enough. It was everything.